the strongest ice god of Black Clover. 001 Black Four-Leaf Clover World. Just when human beings were about to be destroyed by the demon god, there was a magician who came out alone and tried his best to save him. He was called Magic Emperor, and his fame will last forever. Border villages. Next door to Haji village, by a small stream. Lin Hao stared at himself reflected in the stream, and from time to time let out a wry smile. He is a time traveler, his soul has been in this world for half a year, and what brought him to this world is a system called Myriad Realms Invasion. But after the system brought him to this world, it only gave Lin Hao a frozen fruit, and then disappeared without a trace. He is a little helpless now. He heard the system tell him that this is a world called Black Four-Leaf Clover. He has watched half an episode of this anime, because the protagonist growled from the beginning, he really couldn't watch it anymore. If he knew, he would travel to this world in the future, even if the protagonist was roaring fiercely, he would still watch it. Knowing the plot, he has a profit anyway, but it is useless to regret now. Lin Hao squatted down slowly, staring at the stream. The next moment, he stretched out his hand and touched the water surface with his finger. Crack! Crack! The stream water was quickly frozen. Looking at the frozen stream, Lin Hao smiled slightly. Although the cheating system is gone, fortunately, he left me a natural frozen fruit. Lin Hao said with a sigh. Lin Hao, have you really thought about it? A woman who seemed to be in her 30s asked. Lin Hao nodded and said, yes, mother. Why did you suddenly make this decision? Didn't you always want to take the exam for the Magic Knights a few years ago? His mother asked curiously. Lin Hao smiled slightly and said, Mom, I've changed my mind now. The Magic Knights is a good place for me to practice. Joining the Magic Knights, Lin Hao has no other intentions. In that place, he knows that magicians have to travel on missions and can encounter various powerful enemies, which is much faster than blindly cultivating here. As for the Magic Emperor, Lin Hao is not interested either. His goal is to live in this world and wait to die after he is strong enough. Well, your mother won't stop you. If you can't bear the hardship, come back and be an ordinary person. His mother instructed. Lin Hao nodded and set off. In this world, every March, when fireflies and dandelions are blowing away with the wind, the kingdom of Four-Leaf Clover will gather people who have reached the age of 15 from all over the world. Hold a grimoire conferring ceremony that increases magic power. Now, Lin Hao's destination is the Grimoire Tower, where he can get his own grimoire. Grimoire Tower. At this time, there were about 30 to 40 people standing in the Grimoire Tower, and their purpose was the same as Lin Hao, they all came here to get their own grimoire. Here, Lin Hao saw the roaring Emperor Asta back then, and a genius who won the Four-Leaf Clover grimoire, Yuno. After a while, a white-haired old man who looked similar to Gandalf descended from above while standing on a magic carpet. Immediately, it floated down to a place that looked like a podium. Welcome to all the grimoire recipients, and today grant honesty, hope and love to all of you who have embarked on a different path. I'm the master of this Grimoire Tower. Let alone Magic Emperor, we don't even have anyone who might enter the Magic Knights. Of course, I pray that one day, one of you will become a Magic Emperor. Then, the Grimoire conferment ceremony, begin. As soon as the white-haired old man said this, the grimoire in the Grimoire Tower suddenly lit up, and flew towards its owner. Grimoire, there are big and small, thick and thin, and the colors are colorful, anyway, they are all kinds. What floated into Lin Hao's hands was a normal grimoire. Neither big nor small, neither thick nor thin. The color is green. Lin Hao knows what his magic is. It is a kind of magic similar to wood, which can quickly generate plants. The people who got the magic book started talking about it. That. My grimoire hasn't come yet. Asta raised her hands and said with a puzzled look on her face. Eh. The white-haired old man was stunned for a while, and then began to reply, come again next year. The white-haired old man's voice fell. Puff. Almost everyone present laughed in various ways. What's happening here? The other way around is amazing. This is too funny. It's true, it's unbelievable. If you want to be speechless, I really can't compare to him. Ha ha ha. At this moment, behind Asta, a golden light flashed. Yuno got the Four-Leaf Clover grimoire just like the original plot. Four-Leaf Clover. Since he got the four-leaf clover grimoire. That legendary, four-leaf clover. Almost everyone present was amazed, only Lin Hao was watching nonchalantly. Four-leaf clover grimoire, the first magic emperor was also awarded four-leaf clover grimoire. In ordinary magic books, there are 3 leaves, and each leaf contains a meaning. 002 Tower of Grimoire. They are honesty, hope and love, respectively, and four-leaf clover grimoire, with great power, contains luck. There is also a special, 5-leaf grimoire, which inhabits the devil. Holding the grimoire of the four-leaf clover, Yuno turned around and said calmly, I will become the magic emperor. After hearing this, basically everyone looked at Yuno in surprise. Amazing. Yuno is our Haji Star of Hope. The Godfather said excitedly. Brother Yuno is amazing. A little girl shouted excitedly. Thanks to the four-leaf clover's grimoire, he's suddenly the brightest star here. Asta also came back to his senses, and said in a deep voice, Yuno, just wait for me, I will catch up with you soon, because I am your opponent. The audience was silent for a while, and suddenly, there was a burst of laughter, and it sounded again. What do you mean the opponent is really arrogant and ignorant? The guy who didn't get the grimoire is still talking crazy. That is, a person who doesn't even have grimoire talks about opponents with a four-leaf clover grimoire. Yuno's face was a little stiff, and he walked towards Asta's discovery, and when he passed him, he left a sentence. Impossible. Grand grimoire is over, and many people are slowly leaving. Lin Hao also started to walk slowly towards the gate of Grimoire Tower. Lin Hao. With the sound of a voice, Lin Hao turned his head subconsciously. A young woman about his age walked towards him quickly. Lin Hao has a little impression of her, because she is from the same village as Lin Hao, and her name is Melissa. Lin Hao, it's really you, I thought I was wrong. Melissa said with a smile. What can I do for you? Lin Hao asked curiously. Melissa pouted and said, why are you still so boring? By the way, you saw it just now, since someone here got the four-leaf clover grimoire. Well, I saw it. Lin Hao nodded. Just now there was a person who didn't get grimoire who said he would be his opponent without knowing what to do. I really laughed to death. Melissa covered her small mouth. Lin Hao looked at Melissa with some doubts and said, what's the matter, is there something wrong with that? Melissa looked at Lin Hao bored, and said dissatisfied, don't you think this is funny? Is it funny? What he said is the truth. One of them will definitely become the magic emperor in the future. Lin Hao said seriously. Puff. Melissa couldn't help laughing, patted Lin Hao on the shoulder, and said, ha ha ha, I didn't expect Lin Hao to be so humorous. Lin Hao looked at her speechlessly. By the way, Lin Hao, you will also take the Knight Order exam in half a year? Melissa asked. Lin Hao nodded and said, yes. Melissa smiled slightly and said, come on, we two are the stars of hope in our village. Melissa's voice just fell. Immediately, several women walked up to Melissa. Their clothes are completely different from Melissa's, and they should come from a town not far away. They now took a few glances at Lin Hao all over the body. One of the women asked, Melissa, who is this? A poor look. These women were met by Melissa when she and her father were on business in town. Today, they agreed to come here to get grimoire together. In order to keep this relationship from breaking down, Melissa has never dared to say that she belongs to the village near Haji. I can only say that I am from the town, and I often go to the village to do business with my father. Therefore, at this moment, she will definitely not be exposed here. Melissa's face was a little stiff, and she squeezed out a smile and said, we met when I was young, and I happened to meet here, and I said hello. Melissa. Don't get in touch with this kind of person, or you will become like him. Another woman sarcastically said. Melissa smiled wryly and didn't speak. Are you from the town? Lin Hao asked, pretending not to know. Of course, do you think I'm the same as you? One of the women said disdainfully. Do people in the city look like you? Lin Hao continued to ask. Are you kidding me? Our looks are unique. Oh. Lin Hao nodded and said, I'm relieved now. I thought everyone in the city was as ugly as you. It turns out that you are unique. What are you talking about, since you said we are ugly, you country bumpkin? One of the women was angry. I know that it's not your fault that you look ugly, but it's your fault for running out to scare people. Lin Hao said solemnly. Puff. The people who watched the excitement couldn't help laughing. UB********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** Bandit, holding a grimoire in his hand, and wanted to attack Lin Hao. But, at this very moment, a layer of ice centered on Lin Hao and quickly froze. 003 I have only one purpose. Lin Hao didn't activate the ability to freeze fruit on a large scale, but instead froze the feet of the women in front of him. The girls were frightened immediately, because Lin Hao's freezing speed was too fast. Before she even opened the grimoire, she found her feet were frozen. Frozen. Melissa looked at her frozen feet in bewilderment, and she didn't react for a while. She didn't see Lin Hao use magic at all, nor did she see him turn on grimoire. Most importantly, Melissa knew that Lin Hao's magic attribute was plant-based. However, why is it using the ability to freeze now? All kinds of conjectures kept flashing in her mind. She opened her eyes wide and looked at Lin Hao. For a moment, since she found her friends who had played since she was a child, she was a little strange. Not only Melissa and the others were puzzled, but even the surrounding people were stunned. What happened just now? A man on the side stared at the frozen girls with wide eyes and said, I didn't see what was going on. They were frozen in the blink of an eye. Did that person do it? No way, I didn't see him using magic at all. I didn't see clearly either. It was too fast. It should be him. That woman wanted to attack him with magic, and their feet were frozen in the next second. It seems that we have a good show to watch. After the woman saw that her feet were frozen, she became even more annoyed, her face flushed. *********, see if I don't teach you a lesson. The voice fell. The grimoire in her hand lit up, floated in the void, and immediately flipped over with a click. However, at this moment, the ice slammed and froze half of her body. I advise you not to mess around. You all know that everyone is a newcomer magician. Regarding the control of magic power, no one can predict what will happen in the next second. Lin Hao said blankly. You. The woman clenched her teeth angrily and stared at Lin Hao. What? Don't believe me? Then try it. Lin Hao, for my sake, let's forget about it. Melissa said in a deep voice. Lin Hao couldn't help but smiled wryly. I don't seem to know you that well, do I? Lin Hao looked at Melissa and asked. Indeed, a person who has played with her since she was a child, since she is afraid of embarrassing her, she directly denies it. Such a person, what face is there to give? You. At this moment, Melissa was too angry to speak. Suddenly, at this moment, behind those women, came the sound of tat t t t t t t t t t t t t t t t It was the owner of the Grimoire Tower who walked towards Lin Hao and the others. This is the book tower, you are not allowed to make trouble here. The white-haired old man said slowly. It was him, he did it first. The woman pointed to Lin Hao and said. Shut up, the white-haired old man said in a deep voice. Hearing the deterioration of the white-haired old man, the woman was taken aback immediately, and dared not speak out. Go back, the white-haired old man continued. Lin Hao smiled slightly, nodded, and lifted the freeze. Then, he turned and walked towards the gate of the Grimoire Tower. As soon as the freezing was lifted, the woman's center of gravity was unstable and she leaned backwards. Melissa hurried over to help her. Are you okay? Melissa asked. The woman stood up quickly, shook off Melissa's hand, and said, Go away. As she said that, she also quickly left towards the gate of the grimoire tower. Today is a shame, something she has never experienced since she was a child. If there was no Melissa, she would not be so ashamed today. So, at this moment, she couldn't forgive Melissa. Melissa was stunned for a moment, and stood there blankly. It's okay, it'll be fine when she calms down. Well, that's right, Melissa, let's go first. After all, the remaining women quickly chased after him. Why did things get so bad? Melissa's eyes became moist. The next moment, she was running towards the gate of the grimoire tower. That person just now. How powerful. He can release an instant freeze without using grimoire. Yuno, who was at the side, said in surprise. Lin Hao, stop. Panting, Melissa ran up to Lin Hao, and asked angrily, Do you know what you did just now, and what I lost? Lin Hao looked at her speechlessly, and said, What I lost seems to have nothing to do with me. Melissa was so angry that her breath became short of breath, and she said in a deep voice, You will regret it. After all, he turned around and left. Lin Hao just smiled, this kind of thing has nothing to do with him. Now he has only one goal, and that is to become stronger. Only when he becomes stronger can he have the right to speak. 004 The nun's mission after a few days. Haji village, outside the church. A man with white hair and wearing a black robe of a student, looked at the dry pond in front of him, and couldn't help frowning. And he is the priest here. At this time, the same woman in a black robe and a piece of black gauze on her head came over. And she is the nun here. Father, what's the matter? Seeing the priest's expression, the nun couldn't help asking. The priest couldn't help thinking around the pool, it's strange, why there is no water leading to the pool. The nun was taken aback, and said, Could it be that something happened upstream? Well, it's possible. But, this kind of thing hasn't happened for many years. The priest said incredulously. Father, could it be that the river has dried up? The nun asked with a sudden change of expression. Are you kidding me? How could the river dry up? The priest replied, and immediately continued, By the way, I'm going out today. Take some time today to go up and have a look. The nun nodded and replied, I see, Father. After a few hours. After the nun finished the tasks at hand, she set off upstream. The upstream is not very far, the distance is about 3 to 4 kilometers. After a while, the nun came to the river. However, when she saw the scene in front of her, she was completely stunned. Because the water in the small river, at this moment, has become a glacier. The nun was slightly stunned. What's going on? Could it be that someone deliberately released magic to freeze the river? The nun continued to walk up the river bank, and she slowly felt that the surrounding temperature had dropped, and the next scene completely overwhelmed her. What appeared in her line of sight were all kinds of frozen things, such as trees and the ground. If she hadn't known this place herself, the nun would have thought she had come to an extremely cold place. And a little above these frozen objects, there is a man standing on a limb covered in ice. And he is Lin Hao. At this time, Lin Hao was cultivating the ability to freeze fruit in his body. Call. Lin Hao spit out a breath of cold air, now he knows the limit of the frozen fruit in his body. Of course, the current him cannot be compared with Hara Akiji in One Piece. The system gives Lin Hao frozen fruit, but the development level requires Lin Hao to develop it himself. Now he can't be frozen on a large scale. As for the magic attribute in his body, it is of the plant type. Lin Hao took out the grimoire in his hand, and immediately after, the grimoire emitted a green light and floated in the void. Ka ka ka. Grimoire himself turned to the page with the lettering. Wood creation magic, entanglement. Bang bang bang. On the ground, several vines sprang up suddenly, directly entangled a frozen tree. Lin Hao sighed, his magical attribute is far inferior to the ability of the devil fruit in his body. Thinking about it in another way, this system still has some conscience. After all, I gave myself a devil fruit. Otherwise, relying on my plant-based magic, it would be really difficult to become a strong player. That. Suddenly, a soft voice came from behind Lin Hao. Lin Hao turned his head subconsciously. You were the one at the grimoire tower that day. the nun said, startled. Lin Hao was a little puzzled. After looking at the nun, he asked, "You know me?" The nun shook her head and said calmly, "I don't know you, I just met you in the grimoire tower that day." Tower of Grimoire. Lin Hao immediately remembered what happened in the grimoire tower, which brought up a topic, and it was difficult not to remember it. "Is this your magic? It's so powerful." The nun looked at all kinds of ice sculptures around her and said from the bottom of her heart. Lin Hao nodded. Lin Hao has an impression of the nun in front of him. When he was watching the episode of Black Four-Leaf Clover, the nun was a character who appeared very early. Now, he still remembers that Asta proposed to the nun and was rejected by the nun. "Are you training now?" the nun continued to ask. "Well, is there something for the nun?" Lin Hao asked back. "You freeze the river, and all the water flowing from the upper reaches goes to another river. Then our Haji village will have no water," the nun said slowly. Lin Hao said, "Oh, the reason why he froze the river and the surrounding things was just to test his current freezing limit. Now that the testing is over, there is no need to practice in the future like today." "Thank you." The nun finally let out a smile at this moment. Lin Hao's first impression of the nun was not bad. When he watched the anime before, he didn't pay much attention to it. It wasn't until now that he discovered that there was a tear mole under the corner of the nun's eye, and this tear mole on her face added her temperament. After Lin Hao lifted the freezing ability, he chatted with the nun about some common topics. The next moment, in the sky, several figures flew over Lin Hao's head. He subconsciously looked up at the sky. At this moment, in midair, about 5 people riding brooms landed next to Lin Hao. 005 just now, who said they were going to teach me a lesson. 3 of these 5 are women. Moreover, Lin Hao recognized these 3 women at a glance. They were the women who clashed in the grimoire tower a few days ago. "Finally found you, you annoying country bumpkin." The woman gave Lin Hao a weird smile. Lin Hao grinned and said to the nun next to him, "Go, it's none of your business here." After hearing this, the nun glanced at Lin Hao worriedly, and then said to those people, "I think there may be some misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding? This country bumpkin made me so ashamed in front of everyone. If I don't teach him a lesson, how can I relieve my hatred?" The woman crossed her hands and put them on her chest. Don't mention how arrogant that look is. At this moment, it seems that the whole world belongs to her. "Little girl, you have nothing to do here, hurry up and get out of here, or you will be taken care of together." One of the men looked at the nun with disdain and said. The nun's face was a little stiff. She stood in front of Lin Hao, and said in a deep voice, "You go first, I will drag you here." Lin Hao looked at the back of the nun in a daze, and smiled bitterly. "No, what did you do wrong? Is there such a relationship between us? Don't think too much, I just can't bear to see so many of them bullying you." The nun frowned and said. The nun was older than Lin Hao, and Lin Hao was about the same age as Asta and Yuno, so the nun stood in front of Lin Hao at this moment. As a big sister, protect Lin Hao. Lin Hao was flattered by the nun's behavior. Lin Hao walked up to the nun, grinned and said to the woman, "Didn't I tell you that it's not your fault that you look ugly, but it's your fault if you run out to scare people?" The woman was so angry that her veins became erect, and she said to the man next to her, "Brother, you have to help me teach him a lesson." "Leave it to brother, I will make him kneel down and apologize to you," the man said. A grimoire directly bloomed with silver light, floating in front of him. Immediately, he flicked through the pages. When he reached the page with words, the men shouted, "Water creation magic, the fist of the water column." Swipe. As soon as the man finished speaking, suddenly, in front of him, a huge fist formed with water swung towards Lin Hao. "Be careful," the nun shouted worriedly behind Lin Hao. However, Lin Hao acted as if he didn't hear it. Seeing the water fist approaching step by step, Lin Hao raised his hand. Just when the water fist touched Lin Hao's limbs, there was a Z sound, and the water fist was being frozen at a rapid speed as far as the naked eye could see. Lin Hao stepped back, and stopped when the water fist was completely frozen. The water fist floating above the void has now turned into an ice fist, and the next second, it fell directly to the ground. Crack, click. The ice fist was smashed to pieces. "What? Since this guy has frozen my water fist?" The men turned pale with shock. The nun at the side was also surprised, staring at Lin Hao blankly. It seems that my worries were wrong. I thought you were capable. Lin Hao grinned. A layer of cold air spread rapidly around Lin Hao. Zizizi. The ground 10 meters around Lin Hao was covered with a layer of ice. Among the 5 people, only the 2 men barely avoided the blow. The remaining 3 women were not so lucky, and were directly frozen half of their bodies. Brother, save me, the woman said in panic. The man was riding on the magic broom, with a serious face, and asked his sister in a deep voice, "Damn it, didn't you say when you came here that he just got grimoire?" The woman froze for a moment, then quickly said, "Yeah, brother, he got the grimoire with me." "Are you stupid when you think of me as your brother? I just got grimoire, and I can easily take my blow without grimoire. Without grimoire, I can release such a powerful magic," the man said with a serious face. "I didn't lie to you, what I said is true. If you don't believe me, ask my friend." "Yeah, he got grimoires with us." "Aha." The female friend nodded quickly. Originally, they just wanted to come and watch the show, but they didn't expect that even themselves were involved inexplicably. If they could do it all over again, they would definitely not follow. "I don't care about you. If you provoke yourself, you can handle it yourself," the man said with a blank face. "This is not good. After all, she is your sister," another man said. "Then what else do you want? Your magic can't even beat me, and you still want to fight him." The other man was silent and stopped talking. The next moment, the 2 men rode away on the magic broom. Brother. You can't leave me behind," the woman yelled frantically. At this moment, she began to lie a little. Not only did she start to panic, her other 2 friends also started to lie. "Who said you were going to teach me a lesson just now?" 006 Towards the royal capital. As soon as Lin Hao finished speaking, the 3 women couldn't help looking at her. Their eyes were full of fear, and dense sweat began to gather on their faces. "What are you going to do? Let me tell you, if you hurt me, my father will definitely avenge me." The arrogant woman used the last straw. "Really?" Lin Hao sneered. Hearing Lin Hao's frightening laughter, the faces of the 3 women became even more rigid. "As long as you let us go now, I won't pursue this matter," the woman said. At the same time, Lin Hao had already arrived in front of the 3 women, and his face changed. "You don't seem to understand the current situation yet." As he spoke, he cast his gaze on the other 2 women. The other 2 women shuddered immediately, and hurriedly said, It's none of our business, I just came with her." When the woman heard this, she immediately became angry, turned her head to the 2 women and said, "Are you 2 going to leave me when something happens to you?" "Xiaoling, we're just telling the truth. This matter has nothing to do with the 2 of us. You guys." The woman collapsed for a moment. Her big brother ignored her, and now her good friend has distanced herself from her because of fear. At this moment, a soft voice sounded. "Or let's forget it." With that said, the nun walked to Lin Hao's side. The nun said this for the good of Lin Hao. She felt that even if Lin Hao won today, the woman behind would be more profitable. Lead to growing contradictions. As for now, this woman has also been punished accordingly, with 2 blows on her face. As for the nun, just because she let herself go first, she still has to give her face. "Okay, but my ugly words are up front. If there is a next time, I can't guarantee that you will still stand," Lin Hao said in a deep voice. However, after this time, this woman does not dare to have a next time. Her big brother is someone the whole family is proud of and can't beat. If you still act recklessly, you are courting death. After leaving a word, Lin Hao left with the nun, and the freezing of Lin Hao did not stop. As a punishment for them, they were frozen for several hours before being rescued, and their bodies were severely frostbitten. If there is no such thing as magic in this world, they can be said to be disabled. The sun and the moon fly like a shuttle, time flies like an arrow. The Royal Capital Knight's exam is approaching step by step. And Lin Hao's home is quite a distance away from Wang. If he wants not to be late, he has to leave several days in advance. Since Lin Hao's family is in the border area, everyone is not rich, so they can only walk with their feet from here to the capital. Night is coming. Lin Hao first went to the river to take a bath, and caught a few fish by the way. The fish here are very huge, and each one is basically as big as Lin Hao's head. Moreover, the fish here are not afraid of people. When Lin Hao went to the river to take a bath, a group of fish had eaten it since then. They all rushed towards Lin Hao. This action startled Lin Hao immediately, and immediately climbed onto the shore, thinking it was a piranha. I found out later that since there was no one around, and there were no natural enemies for these fish in the river, they were used to being carefree. When something fell from the land, they also thought it was coming to eat. I picked up some firewood, lit it, cleaned up the caught fish, and started grilling. After eating, Lin Hao turned on his own grimoire, and used wood creation magic to wind and weave a hammock. I have to say that this magic is quite practical, and the effect of sleeping is no worse than that of a bed. Around the hammock, Lin Hao made an ice hole, and next to the ice hole, put a lot of ice thorns to avoid being attacked by wild animals while sleeping. The sky was getting brighter, and Lin Hao didn't sleep well at night. Just as he expected, many wild animals came at night. Although they couldn't get close, they kept wandering around, screaming non-stop. However, Lin Hao, who was lying on the hammock, was unwilling to get up and kill them, and let them scream for several hours, not because he was afraid, but because he didn't want to get up after lying down. After getting up, Lin Hao packed up his things and started off again. The journey went smoothly, until he passed a village and was walking a certain distance. He didn't meet the wild beast, but he met two robbers blocking the road. The two men were around 40 years old, with scruffy beards and disheveled hair. If he hadn't said the word robbery, Lin Hao would have thought they were beggars. "Little brother, hand over your valuables, and I can keep your life," one of the men said. 007 robbery. Thanks, Kui 888, for rewarding 4,000 VIP points. If you don't pay, you understand the consequences, but I can't guarantee your life. Another man added. You're right. Uncles still have principles in their work. They won't follow the procedure until the last step. No, uncle. If you want to rob, you should find someone who is dressed more flamboyantly. If you see through this appearance, can you have anything valuable? Lin Hao smiled wryly. Indeed, now Lin Hao really has nothing of value on him, except for a few changes of clothes in the bag on his back. There is only a little money that his mother gave him. Little brother, you are forcing us to go through the next procedure. One of the men loosened the bones on his body, crackling. A look that wants to swallow Lin Hao alive. Do you know how many times we met today? Another man asked. Lin Hao shook his head. The third one. Do you know what happened to the first two? The men continued to ask. Lin Hao still shook his head. Hey, do you see the raised mud lumps on the half slope over there? Lin Hao nodded and said, he's quite conscientious. If he kills someone, he'll at least bury him. After hearing Lin Hao's words, the two sloppy men almost vomited blood in anger. Are you kidding us? Is this the point? The point is that if you don't hand it over, there will be a grave protruding somewhere. The man said with his veins erect. But Lin Hao in front of him was still as if nothing had happened. Brother, don't talk nonsense with the guy, go directly to the next procedure. One of the men, 2 steps combined and 1 step, walked directly in front of Lin Hao. Reaching out is about to hit. Lin Hao stretched out his hand to block it. Crack! The man's fist hit Lin Hao's arm, but in the next second, the man turned into an ice sculpture. The remaining man was stunned for a moment, quickly took a few steps back, and said solemnly, "Are you a mage?" Lin Hao smiled slightly. What do you think? The man frowned, and the next moment, he took out his grimoire, and saw that his grimoire was emitting a light yellow light and floating in the void. Ka. Grimoire himself turned to the page with the lettering. The man said, "Earth creates magic, swamp." The man's voice had already fallen, and the ground where Lin Hao was standing turned into a swamp, but the scale was not very large. Is it earth attribute magic? Lin Hao was startled, and directly activated the ability to freeze the fruit, freezing all the swamp he created. What? The man was taken aback when he saw this scene, but he didn't panic. Seeing his grimoire flipping again, the man said again, "Earth creates magic, the wrath of the earth." Ziz. On the ground, an arm made of mud blocks stretched out towards Lin Hao. He opened his palm and wanted to grab Lin Hao. Lin Hao originally wanted to use the ability to freeze fruits, but after thinking about it, he spent almost half a year training on the ability to freeze fruits. He seldom trains his magic, so at this moment, he absolutely decided to use his plant magic. After all, when he arrived in the capital, he not only used plant-based magic for a while but also used the ability to freeze fruits. It is easy to be suspected in this way, because he is born with two kinds of magic with different attributes. It is also easy to be harmed. As for using it at the frontier before, basically everyone didn't know that their magic was plant-based. What's more, when Lin Hao was at the border, he went to the grimoire tower to see the list of people who took the exam for the knights. In the border village, there were only 4 people who took the exam for the knight's order. 2 of them Lin Hao knew who they were, namely Asta and Yuno. As for the rest, Lin Hao didn't know who they were. Lin Hao's grimoire emitted a green light and quickly floated in front of him. Ka ka ka. Grimoire flipped straight away. Wood creates magic, everything grows. As soon as Lin Hao's voice fell, immediately, in the middle of the mud arm, trees, vines, etc., dozens of plants sprang out directly. The roots of these plants spread directly to the ground, tightly sealing the movement of the arm. What? The man was startled when he saw the scene in front of him. At this moment, Lin Hao's grimoire flipped. Wood creation magic, entanglement. Bang bang bang. The ground under the man's feet suddenly opened a spider web-shaped crack, and the next moment, several vines directly entangled the man tightly. Immobilize him. With a snap, his grimoire lost its light and fell to the ground. 008 Examination of the knight's order. Obviously, now he has lost the ability to fight. Lin Hao walked towards him slowly, touched his pocket, there was only some money, and frowned. Lin Hao is located in a border village, and the whole village is not rich, so when Lin Hao went to the capital, his mother only gave him a little money, which was considered a lot in the eyes of Lin Hao's mother. But in the capital, I really can't buy anything, at most enough to eat for about a week. It can only be eaten poorly. He said to the men expressionlessly, hand over your valuables, and I can consider taking your life. When the men heard this, he was stunned. The most ridiculous thing in the world is that the robbery was turned into a robbery. Big brother, big brother. You know it too. I just started doing business today, and the 2 in front of me have no money. The men hurriedly explained. Lin Hao didn't bother to spend any more time with him, and now he had to rush to the capital to take the exam. I gave you a chance. If you don't cherish it, don't blame me. Killing you should be considered a good deed. Lin Hao said blankly. As soon as the men heard that Lin Hao was going to kill himself, he panicked and said quickly, I have money, it's on me, I'll take it out for you right away, don't kill me. Sorry, you have missed this opportunity. Lin Hao said in a deep voice. I saw Lin Hao slowly raised his hand, and a chill suddenly appeared in his palm. In the blink of an eye, a weapon made of ice appeared in Lin Hao's hands. No. No. Don't kill me. The man said in a panic when he saw the ice weapon in Lin Hao's hand, his whole body began to tremble. He never dreamed that this man would die at the hands of others today. They have robbed many people on this road, and most of them paid money directly to save their lives. They were a little wary when they robbed. As the number of robbers increased, most of them gave money directly. In this way, their vigilance became smaller and smaller, which led to such consequences. Lin Hao ignored him, took the ice weapon in his hand, and directly pierced his heart with a swish. Puffed. The man's throat was sweet, and he spit out a mouthful of blood. Although, Lin Hao took all the valuables from him. Not to mention, he looked sloppy, like a beggar, and the money hidden in his body is 5 times more than what Lin Hao's mother gave him. There is also a pendant that seems to be very valuable. After finishing the 2 of them, Lin Hao continued on his way. After a long journey, Lin Hao finally came to the capital of the 4-leaf clover kingdom. There are crowds of people here, lively and noisy. Seeing this scene, Lin Hao breathed a sigh of relief. After walking for so many days, he finally arrived at his destination. On the streets of Wangdu, there are all kinds of shops, all kinds of wands and props. However, the prices are high. One day before the night's exam, Lin Hao found a place to live. These days, he has been on the road, and he hasn't had a good rest yet. He decided to rest when he had time. Noon the next day. Bang bang bang. Above the sky, the fireworks bloomed recklessly, and lasted for a while before they finally stopped. Apparently, the fireworks represented that preparations for the night order exam were about to begin. At the gate of the examination room, a large number of people had gathered, many of whom came to cheer. Come on for the entrance exam. The future of the capital is in your hands. You are all the sprouts of the four-leaf clover kingdom. Come on. Lin Hao walked in straight. At this time, there were many long queues inside. He poked his head and looked. This link is to detect grimoire. Lin Hao reported where he came from, and after taking out grimoire to test him, the men said, "Okay, you are 264, next one." Lin Hao nodded and walked in. The huge castle tower was full of people. Their purpose was the same as that of Lin Hao, and they all came to take the entrance exam for the knight's order. Suddenly, at this moment, a flock of birds flew down. This is the famous object of the opening venue, repelling birds. The lower the mana, the more these birds will be attracted. Look, there's no one with a single bird around. A man said. The other one looked over, and just as the men in front said, there really wasn't a single bird. The man they were talking about was Yuno, who got the four-leaf clover grimoire. This guy, I just heard from him, seems to be from the border village of Haji. But he's holding a four-leaf clover's grimoire. What, four-leaf clover, true or false? Really, that's what the guy who tested grimoire just now said. Suddenly, at this moment, it rang in their ears. Look, where, there's another one that doesn't have a single bird around. Hearing this, everyone looked over curiously. 009 head of the Golden Dawn Regiment. The person everyone looked at was Lin Hao. Among these crowds, Lin Hao, like Yuno, was among the people present, the only ones who didn't have repulsive birds around them. Really? There are no repelling birds around him, either. Maybe his grimoire is also a four-leaf clover. One of them asked curiously. How is it possible? Stop joking. It seems that there are assassins in this year's night exam. There are two people with such strong magic power. At this time, Lin Hao was also a little puzzled. He remembered that his magic power was not so strong, but why there were no repelling birds around him. Suddenly, at this moment, there was a commotion among the crowd. Lin Hao looked over subconsciously, and it turned out that Asta had bumped into it, the leader of the Black Burst team, Yami Tsukiro. Asta was lifted directly by Yami leading the head. Black Burst Cows, a rogue knight group whose negative achievements outweigh their merits. The team members are all morally questionable. Due to poor grades, none of the regiment members could be upgraded, but their combat ability ranks among the best among the 9 magic knight regiments in the four-leaf clover kingdom. Lin Hao didn't like excitement very much, so he walked towards the edge of the tower. He just waited for the exam to start. On the side of the castle tower, there is another woman hiding behind a pillar, quietly watching the crowd. She tied her hair into 2 braids, and she was wearing expensive clothes, which seemed a little out of place with the ordinary people outside. That's right, she is Noa al Silva. She is the youngest daughter of the royal Silva family. She has 2 brothers and 1 sister, all of whom are wizards with powerful magic abilities. Her mother died of dystocia after giving birth to her, and only Noelle was neglected because of her poor ability to control magic, but she still practiced hard. However, after the patriarch passed away, she was immediately expelled from the family by her brothers and sisters. Except for the occasional living expenses, the rest was completely ignored. Whenever she met, she would be treated with ridicule and insults by her brothers and sisters, which made her not want to face these brothers and sisters. Today, she also wanted to come to take the exam for the night order. When she found that Lin Hao had also walked to the edge of the tower, she subconsciously pulled back her eyes looking outside. Leaning his back against the pillar, he looked at Lin Hao from time to time. However, Lin Hao ignored it, but leaned his back against the wall, folded his hands on his chest, and looked outside quietly. Bang bang bang. Fireworks once again bloomed in midair, which meant that the exam for the night order was about to begin. This time the exam was presided over by the heads of the 9 night orders directly under the Magic Emperor. And these 9 knights, like the Magic Emperor, are deeply admired and loved by the people. The 9 night orders are divided into Red Lotus Lion King, Zun Orca, Golden Dawn, Black Bull, Silver Winged Vulture, Green Briar, Emerald Mantis, Aqua Deer, and Coral Peacock. After the sound of fireworks blooming stopped, The heads of the 9 Night Orders walked slowly from the corridor on the second floor to the seats on the second floor. Every leader of the Knights, Lin Hao felt weird, especially the leader of the Emerald Mantis Knights. When Lin Hao saw him for the first time, he thought that Orochimaru from Naruto had gone to the wrong set. On the second floor of the tower, Yami sat listlessly. While complaining, "Hey, it's really troublesome, hurry up and end it for me." The leader of the Knights of the Golden Dawn looked at Yami and smiled slightly. "This is an important test that determines the future of young people. I hope you will take it seriously." Yami took down the cigarette and said, "Yes, are you serious?" The head of the Golden Dawn regiment ignored it, but turned his attention to all the candidates below. He said, "Candidates, I have been waiting for a long time. I will preside over this exam." After that, he held a yellow-covered grimoire in his hand, and flipped to the page with the font. "The magic tree is coming." Suddenly, his grimoire glowed green. The sky was suddenly covered with dark clouds, and a strong air current hit the examination room. Suddenly, in the center of the dark clouds, a green and yellow light flickered. Immediately afterwards, the roots of a monstrous tree slowly descended, and the roots began to fork, spreading towards every candidate. Finally, at the end of the root of the tree, it turned into a magic broom and handed it to every candidate. Everyone looked at the magic broom in front of them, very surprised. It's no wonder that he is the leader of the Knights of the Golden Dawn, known as the strongest magic knights. The strength is really too strong. Yeah, I was scared just now. In comparison, we are simply ants. Oh, if only I could join the Golden Dawn regiment. Don't think about it, idiot. I said that these 2 regiments only accept elites from the royal family or nobles. 010 The final exam. Novel image. Oh, what a pity, I perfectly avoided these 3 things. One of the men sighed. The 3 things he mentioned are naturally the royal family, nobles, and elites. My request is not that big, as long as I can enter the Knight Order, I will be satisfied. Me too. Indeed, with their standard, it is not bad to be able to enter the Knight Order, so there is no way to pick and choose. After everyone got the magic broom, the leader of the Golden Dawn closed his grimoire and said with a slight smile. Then the entrance examination for the Magic Knights begins now. From now on, everyone will take several exams, and the heads of our 9 Magic Knights will be responsible for the review. After the review, they will each select the talents they need. If you are selected, you can join the regiment. If you are selected by several knight regiments, you can choose the regiment you want to join. Conversely, if you are not selected, you will lose the qualification to enter the Magic Knights. And the first test of these items is to use a broom to fly up. A mage who can control magic power can do it just by feeling. This is the most basic way for mages to walk and move. If you can't do this, then it's not worth mentioning at all. Then the exam begins. As soon as the leader of the Golden Dawn finished speaking, almost everyone started to try it. Some are sitting on the broom, controlling their own magic power, and it is difficult to make the broom fly. And some with better talents, just sat on the broom, and flew up. On the ground, more and more people flew into the air. Yuno looked at the broom in his hand, hesitated for a while, and the next moment, the broom in his hand floated up. Immediately afterwards, he stood up and instantly killed everyone around him, becoming the first person to fly while standing on the broomstick. Moreover, it is very stable, not at all like someone who has just touched the magic broom. Yuno floated around a few times, and everyone cast envious glances at him. Fortunately, the one chosen by the 4-leaf clover is really amazing. Yeah, if he is so powerful, he should be able to join the Golden Dawn regiment. Ha ha ha. At this moment, a sarcastic laugh came from behind the 2 men. The 2 men turned their heads subconsciously. Join the Golden Dawn regiment. Indeed, this untouchable has the ability, but don't forget, the Golden Dawn regiment only accepts nobles or members of the royal family. The 2 men nodded. Lin Hao took the broom in his hand calmly and just walked a few steps. He found that Nozzle Silva, the head of the Knights of the Silver Wing Vulture, walked to Nuo al Silva's side. Out of curiosity, Lin Hao stopped and looked over. What are you doing? Nuo al Silva was taken aback when he heard the voice, and turned his head stiffly to look at the person in front of him. I'm here. Nuo al faltered halfway through and couldn't speak. Well, their names are too long, and it bothers you to read them, and it bothers me to write them, so I just use the front part. I should have said that the royal family does not need to take the exam with the common people. Your future has already been determined, so don't do unnecessary things. Nuo replied softly, yes, brother Nozel. Nozel turned around with a sneer, and said sarcastically, however, your existence itself is redundant. I saw Nuo tightly holding the broom in his hands, frowning. Royal family. Lin Hao muttered, but ignored it, took the broom in his hand, sat on it, used his magic power, and flew up. As time went by, the first project came to an end, and the second project was immediately ushered in. However, Lin Hao never saw Nuo again. The second item is the magic quiz. The third project is the magic operation test. Item 4 create magic quiz. Next, is the last test. It will be conducted in the form of actual combat. 2 people will fight against each other. You can also use grimoire to attack. The leader of the Golden Dawn Regiment announced. If there is one side to vote for, or if you can't continue to fight, the exam is over, please fight to your heart's content, our magician who restores magic will always be on standby. If you lose, it will seriously affect the results of the review, right? One of the men asked. The other one nodded and said, it should be, it seems that this test is very important for selecting opponents. Adversary. I remember someone who was bad from beginning to end. You mean him? The 2 people cast their eyes on Asta, and then a weird smile leaked out. Because in their eyes, Asta is simply here to deliver results. Lin Hao on the other side also set his sights on Asta. Damn it, if I had known that I would come to this world, I would definitely have finished watching this. Lin Hao sighed, feeling a little regretful. Although it is true that Asta has no magic power, Lin Hao can also guess the exam for the knights. He definitely passed in the original book. As for living like this, Lin Hao doesn't know. Now, he also wants to see how Asta was selected into the knights. 011 Asta and Sek, tonight the author stays up late to update, asking for flowers, monthly tickets. Asta was looked down upon from the first project to the last. Of course, the last round of the 2-person battle was also his most sought after. Because, basically everyone thinks that as long as they can play against Asta, the winner or loser will be decided before the match even starts. Lin Hao looked at the grimoire in his hand, and now there are only 3 pages in his grimoire with fonts. Others are blank. The 3 pages of fonts also represent 3 skills, 2 of which he has already used, namely wood creation magic, entwining, and wood creation magic, growth of all things. As for the last one, it is the large-scale plant magic, thousands of vines. Only this one has never been used before. When he first got the grimoire, he wanted to try it, but found that the magic power was not enough, so he gave up the idea of trying it. It wasn't until he set off to the capital that the magic power was enough, but he didn't try it because he was in a hurry. I really want to see the third magic skill, and I can try it when the 2 of them are fighting. Lin Hao closed his grimoire and put it back in the bag on his waist. At this time, a large group of people had approached Asta, and they all said they wanted to fight Asta. As for that kid Asta, because he kept yelling in front of him and didn't show any performance, he was still worried about who would want to fight against him. Unexpectedly, a group of people came to him in the next second, which made him very happy. I was so excited that I was about to cry. Asta. Fight with me. Sek walked up to Asta and said. It's you, Sek. It's really great, are you willing to fight someone like me? Asta said excitedly. Up front, from the first round, Sek has been doing Asta a huge favor by pretending to be fake. Asta was so moved that he already accepted Sek as a good friend in his heart. Of course. Sek smiled with his hands on his hips. You are such a nice person. Asta said. Others who originally wanted to fight Asta were slightly disappointed. Damn it, the results sent were taken by Sek. However, this Sek is really lucky to have paved the way at the beginning. Damn it, if it weren't for Sek, I might have a chance to fight him and perform well. In this way, my chances of getting into the knights will be greatly increased. After a while. Next, who wants to be the first pair to fight? A man shouted loudly. I'm coming, I'm coming. This guy Asta is also naive, completely ignorant of the inside story, and ran over yelling. Behind him is Sek who keeps laughing. Let's fight for our ambitions, and show no mercy. Asta said with a smile on his face. Just then, Sek put his hand on Asta's shoulder. Ahaha. He sneered a few times. Smiling, he put his face close to Asta's, and said with a look of disdain, "You can stop working hard, you dirty little mouse who came to the wrong place. Thank you for being a foil to me along the way. I will work hard in the magic nights with your share, and leave good memories, okay, you poor little guy." After hearing this, Asta's pupils shrank violently, and subconsciously took half a step back. Sek sneered, then turned around, keeping a distance from Asta. The referee shouted loudly, "Then, start." With a wave of Sek's hand, his grimoire floated up, and clicked to the scene with fonts. "I won't show mercy. Let's win. Bronze creates magic, and bronze defends magic ball," Sek said. Around him, pieces of armor-like things were joined together, and finally formed a sphere, tightly wrapping him inside. After Asta stood still for a moment, his grimoire levitated. Lin Hao looked at Asta's grimoire and was startled. This is the author of the original work, a cheat for Asta. Others may not feel anything unusual, but Lin Hao is different, he is not from this world. His thinking is very different from that of people in this world. When Asta's distinctive grimoire appeared, Lin Hao was basically sure that this was the main source of Asta's becoming a strong player in the original book. After all, it has been more than a year since Lin Hao traveled here, and he has seen a lot of colorful grimoires. However, Asta's is emitting a dark reddish light, such a weird grimoire, it must be a very remarkable hook. 012 Lin Hao's Yuno, you're welcome, let's attack with all your strength. Sek proudly said to Asta in the defensive magic cannonball. There was no expression on Asta's face, and he replied in a deep voice, "Okay, then I'll go." After all, Asta pressed down with his whole body, loosened his feet, and then exerted force on the soles of his feet, and suddenly, the tiles under his feet shattered with a click. The next moment, he ran towards Sek with his whole body, and at the same time, his five-leaf grimoire followed quickly. When the distance was about the same, Asta reached into his grimoire with one hand. Immediately afterwards, he directly pulled out a pitch-black long sword, and slashed at the defensive magic cannonball with a shui. Asta's speed was so fast that it directly shocked Sek inside the defensive magic cannonball. With such a fast speed, now, he couldn't make any moves at all. The moment the pitch-black long sword touched the defensive magic cannonball, it was instantly shattered. Sek's pupils contracted violently, and with an the jet-black long sword fell on him. Bang! It was directly impacted to the ground, followed by a bang, and there were cracks in the shape of spider webs on the ground. Sek lay directly in the big hole he made, foaming at the mouth. At this moment, everyone present was stunned. The one they thought was the weakest killed Sek in one blow. No way. Since, defeated Sek with one hit. Could it be that he's just pretending to be stupid all the time? It feels a little scary. What's the matter, is that sword magic? Did he use high-speed movement magic just now? The leader of the Golden Dawn Regiment froze for a moment, but soon, he vetoed the previous words. No, he just relies on his physical fitness. And, that grimoire. This kid, it's quite interesting. Yami muttered. Is it creation magic? Seeing that his other exams were poor, I didn't expect this guy to have such powerful magic power. A man standing behind Yami asked. Yami took a deep breath, then slowly exhaled, and said, he has no magic power. Oh, no, it's not useless, but he has no magic power at all. No wonder, when I caught him just now, I didn't get any magic power from him. Feel the presence of magic. As expected of the men with the halo of the protagonist in the original book. Lin Hao said subconsciously. Asta carried the black long sword on his shoulder, looked at Sek who was foaming at the mouth, and said in a deep voice. I didn't take the exam just to work hard and leave some good memories. I put my life on the line to become Magic Emperor. Magic Emperor. When everyone heard these three words, they couldn't help laughing. Just now Asta's blow really shocked them, but wanting to become Magic Emperor with this ability is simply a dream. Is this guy a fool? Does he know what he's talking about? Poor thing, he's still daydreaming. Go home, silly boy. When Asta heard this, his veins immediately became erect, and as Lin Hao expected, he began to growl. After Asta's battle ended, many people went up to fight again. As time went on, there were fewer and fewer people on the field who hadn't played yet. I remember that you are the same as me, you came from the border together. After hearing the voice, Lin Hao turned around subconsciously. At this time, it was Yuno who was talking to him. You know me? Lin Hao smiled and asked curiously. Yuno nodded and said, I saw you last time at the Grimoire Tower, but I didn't expect that you also came to take the exam for the Knight's Order. Have you found someone to fight against? Lin Hao asked. Yuno shook his head and replied, how about we make a couple? Yes. Lin Hao replied. In this black four-leaf clover world, the first rank in the realm is the third-class lower-level magic knight. Then the second lower level, the first lower level, the intermediate level and the upper level have 5 divisions. The last is the Great Magic Knight, and above the Great Magic Knight is the Magic Emperor. Both Yuno and Lin Hao have reached the realm of first-class low-level magic knights. In this examination room, most of them are third-class lower-level magic knights. Next, who comes first? The referee shouted. I'm coming. Yuno replied, and followed slowly the next moment. Seeing that Yuno was on the scene, some noble children wanted to challenge this so-called genius chosen by the four-leaf clover grimoire. He didn't care if Yuno found someone to fight, so he just followed Yuno up. However, at this moment, with a sound of snap, Lin Hao's hand slapped him on the shoulder. What do you want? 013 The game is suspended. Man turned around and found that Lin Hao's hand was on his shoulder. He frowned for a moment and shook Lin Hao's hand away, saying, Where did you come from, country bumpkin, don't you know who I am? Lin Hao's complexion suddenly changed, and he said in a deep voice, I don't care who you are. Get out. The man was startled by Lin Hao's tone. Just about to refute something but was pushed away by Lin Hao. Only the man was still standing there with a dazed look on his face, a little at a loss. Damn untouchable, since you dare to talk to me like this. The manly whole body trembled. At this time, the head of the knights on the second floor also became interested. This is the lucky one chosen by the four-leaf clover grimoire, said the member of the Black Buffalo standing behind Yami. I can feel that the magic power of the two of them is much stronger than the others. Yami said calmly. Head, who do you think will win between the two? What about you? Yami asked back. Most people would think that the lucky one picked by the four-leaf clover would have a good chance of winning, but I feel the same way. It stands to reason that's true. After all, the magic power of the two of them is similar. To be honest, I really hope to see their duel soon. Yami said. That's the one with the four-leaf clover grimoire. No way, who is this person? Since he's so stupid, he's going to fight someone with a four-leaf clover grimoire. It seems that that person is also from the border village. Are all the border villages so powerful now? That's right, that silly boy just now is quite powerful. Are you ready? The referee asked from the side. Lin Hao and Yuno nodded. Okay, let's start. The referee's voice just fell. Both Lin Hao and Yuno's grimoire float in front of each other. Ka. Lin Hao's grimoire flipped to the side with fonts. Would creation magic entangling? Yuno was startled for a moment, a thought suddenly flashed in his mind. Isn't this guy's magic attribute the freezing type? Could it be? Wasn't he the one who used the freezing ability in the Grimoire Tower? At the beginning, Yuno stood at a relatively far distance, and didn't fail to see if it was Lin Hao who used the freezing magic. Just listening to the people next to him, he thought it was true. Bang bang bang. The ground suddenly split open, and several vines about the size of an arm sprang out from the bottom of Yuno's feet. Yuno immediately jumped up. But the vines still spread towards him. Ka. Yuno's grimoire flipped a few pages. Wind magic, wind blade. As soon as his words fell, suddenly, in midair, several blades formed by the wind slashed towards the vines. Shua, several times. Lin Hao's vines were chopped off. Wind magic. Lin Hao muttered, then continued with a grin, okay, I just have a magic skill that I want to try. Ka. Lin Hao's grimoire flipped again. Plant magic thousands of vines. His voice just fell. Zizizi. The entire castle tower immediately shook. Yuno was stunned for a moment, his eyes kept scanning his surroundings, because at this moment, he felt that there would be something attacking from any direction. With the shaking of the castle tower, the 9 knights sitting on the second floor were a little surprised. However, as the group leaders, they had experienced too much. Although they were a little surprised, they didn't show it on their faces. Still sitting as if nothing had happened. Suddenly, directly, at this moment. Boom, boom, boom. On the ground, large vines began to burst out directly. Of course, not just next to Yuno, but next to everyone present. Some people who were watching the play were startled, shouting and hiding. At this moment, the 9 captains of the knights sitting on the second floor finally couldn't sit still. Just stood up. The building of the castle tower began to crack, and in the next second, it collapsed directly. Boom, boom. Lin Hao was stunned by the continuous rise of huge vines. As the fort tower collapsed, thick smoke covered everyone. And above the thick smoke and dust, there are hundreds of large vines standing upright. Now Lin Hao only needs to use his brain to control these vines, and these vines can be turned into his most powerful weapon. However, because this magical skill was beyond Lin Hao's expectation, he did not take any action at this moment. Suddenly at this time, amidst the thick smoke and dust, the voice of the head of the Golden Dawn Regiment came. The game is suspended, 014. The exam ends as soon as the voice fell. Then came the sound of tapping footsteps. Immediately afterwards, a gust of air blew away the thick smoke and dust. And the figures of the crowd also appeared. At this time, the castle tower has completely turned into ruins. Most of the candidates present sat paralyzed on the ground with panicked expressions and dense sweat on their faces. This guy. He's so strong. It's terrible, even the towers have been trampled. I can't believe it, is he really a candidate? Are the people in the border villages this year so scary? The momentum completely overwhelmed the royal family and nobles present. The 9 knight leaders looked at the huge vines erected around them. A smile gradually appeared on his face. Leader, it seems that this kid is also very interesting. Yami, a member of the Black Burst team, said later. Call. Yami exhaled smoke rings and said, yes, it seems that many of this year's candidates are quite good. Sigh, our group's reputation is so bad, I don't know if he will join our group. The members of the Black Burst Cow group sighed. Huh. Yami turned his head, glared at the member and said, what did you say? No, leader, you heard me wrong, I didn't say anything. The members of the Black Bull squad hurriedly waved their hands and said. You two don't have to fight anymore. The head of the Golden Dawn Regiment said. Yes. Yuno nodded. Lin Hao sighed helplessly, originally wanted to try the power of this trick, but now he has no chance. However, this magic skill really surprised Lin Hao, he never thought it would be so powerful. Moreover, he also discovered that although his plant magic, Myriad Vines, requires a certain level of magic power to use, he will also grow stronger as the master's magic power increases. The scale will also become larger and larger, and eventually become the real rise of thousands of vines. Thousands of huge vines like this, what is the concept? You know, there are only 100 or so vines that appear now, and they have already turned the surrounding area into ruins. Lin Hao thought about it, and felt a little agitated in his heart. With the ability to freeze fruit and his own magic, Lin Hao feels that in the near future, he will be able to gain a foothold in this black 4-leaf clover world. Sorry, I accidentally turned this place into ruins. Lin Hao said to the leader of the Golden Dawn Regiment. The leader of the Golden Dawn Regiment smiled slightly. He didn't care about Lin Hao turning this place into ruins. Now he has taken a fancy to Lin Hao's ability. At this moment, the head of the Golden Dawn Regiment seemed to see Lin Hao joining his regiment. However, in his eyes, as long as he raises his hand, Lin Hao will definitely not be able to resist the temptation. Because the Golden Dawn is currently the strongest knights, and the rest of the members are nobles or royal families. In his eyes, it is his honor for Lin Hao to join. It's okay, you've performed very well. The leader of the Golden Dawn Regiment said calmly. Lin Hao chuckled, but it is a little incorrect to describe the 2 words of performance to describe what he just did. His goal is very simple, as long as he can enter one of the 9 knight orders. Just now, he didn't want to perform well in front of the 9 knight leaders, but simply wanted to try his unused magic skills. Golden Dawn turned around and used its own magic to clear away the surrounding debris and create an open space. He opened his mouth and said, "Who hasn't fought yet, continue." It was getting dusk, and all the candidates present had finished the battle. The 9 knight commanders stood side by side in a row. The exam is over. Candidates who have been called to number stand in front. The head of the Golden Dawn regiment said in a deep voice. Candidate number 1 steps forward. No hand raised. Candidate number 2 steps forward. No hand raised. No one raised their hands until the 100th candidate, and the pressure on the candidates was also increasing. Everyone is worried about their fate, whether they will be the same as the previous candidates. 164 candidates. Yes. Yuno stepped forward. Those who want to join the group, please raise your hand. Shua, shua, shua. Almost at the same time, the 9 knight leaders raised their hands at the same time. Everyone was shocked. Really, the 9 knight leaders raised their hands at the same time. Yeah, all the heads raised their hands. It's awesome. It's no wonder that he is a genius selected by 4-leaf clover. However, don't the Golden Dawn group and the Silver Wing Eagle group only accept elites from the royal family and nobles? Who knows? Yuno glanced at the 9 knight leaders around him. In order to become Magic Emperor, Yuno chose the best path, the Golden Dawn of the strongest knight order. I want to join the Golden Dawn, Yuno said. The leader of the Golden Dawn regiment smiled slightly, as if everything was in his expectation. For this year's candidates, he only took a fancy to 2 candidates, Yuno and Lin Hao. For the rest, he has no interest. At the same time, what Lin Hao didn't know was that because of his arrival, the plot of the original work began to change. 015 Black Cattle Knights in the original book, no one in Asta originally raised his hand, and then he was spotted by the head of the Black Bull squad, and finally joined the Black Bull Knights. But because of Lin Hao, when they arrived at Asta, a leader of the Knights actually raised his hand. And he is from the leader of the Emerald Mantis Knights. After a long time. The next one, candidate number 264. Lin Hao stepped forward when he heard his number being read. Those who want to join the group, please raise your hand. Shua, shua, shua. The 9 knight leaders raised their hands again at the same time. Everyone was shocked again. It's amazing, all the team leaders raised their hands again. Yes, it is estimated that the royal family and the nobles will all be slapped in the face this time. It's really surprising. All the heads raised their hands twice. The most important thing is that both of them are from border villages. Lin Hao glanced at the 9 regiment leaders in front of him. To be honest, he didn't think it mattered which knight regiment he joined. But if the heads of the 9 knight orders raised their hands at the same time, he would have to choose a more normal one. In the eyes of Lin Hao, half of the 9 captains of the knights are abnormal. For example, the head of the Knights of the Silver-Winged Vulture has a braid on the front, and an ornament is inserted at the end of the braid. The leader of the Emerald Mantis Knights looks very much like Orochimaru in Naruto. The leader of the Coral Peacock Knights, from the moment he entered the arena, his eyes have not been opened, and there is a bubble in his nose, which becomes larger and smaller with breathing. Etc. Lin Hao really can't appreciate these things. Well, let me choose which uncle smokes. Lin Hao said calmly. After his words fell, everyone fell silent for a while. This kid. The leader of the Golden Dawn frowned even more. He couldn't figure it out. The Golden Dawn Knights are the most powerful knights. Lin Hao, however, chose a rogue knight group whose negative results outweigh their merits, the Black Burst Bull group. Really? Did I hear you right? He gave up the chance to join the Knights of the Golden Dawn. He also gave up the chance to join the Knights of the Silver-Winged Eagle. He chose the Knights of the Black Burst Bull. This guy. Such a rare opportunity has been wasted. That is, if the leaders of my 9 knight orders raised their hands, I would definitely choose the Knights of the Golden Dawn. Oh. It's really a pity. At this time, when Yami heard that Lin Hao chose to join the Black Bull Knights, he thought he heard it wrong. Did that kid just say that he wanted to join our regiment? Yami asked the members of the Black Burst Cavaliers behind him. Yeah, a good seed just fell from the sky. We are so lucky. I thought he would definitely choose the Golden Dawn Knights. Are you sure? The leader of the Golden Dawn Regiment asked Lin Hao. Hey, what do you want to do? Didn't this kid say something, so there's no way he can go back on his word? Yami interjected. Lin Hao smiled slightly. Yes, I want to join their group. The head of the Golden Dawn Regiment chuckled lightly and said, that's fine. The sky was getting dark, and the entrance examination for the Magic Knights was over. My name is Yuno. Next time, if there is a chance, we will decide the battle that was not decided today. Yuno walked to Lin Hao's side and said slowly. Lin Hao shook his head slightly, and said, Lin Hao. As for the battle, forget it, it's so troublesome, you win. Yuno froze for a moment, then said calmly, no, if the victory is not achieved by oneself, it is meaningless. By the way, is your goal also to become the Magic Emperor? Yuno added. Lin Hao shook his head, no, I'm not interested in Magic Emperor. Yuno smiled slightly, that's right, no wonder you gave up the best path and chose the Black Bull Knights. Boy, it's time to go. Yami shouted to Lin Hao from the side. Okay. Lin Hao replied, and then turned to Yuno and said, okay, let's talk when we have a chance. I should go. After finishing speaking, Lin Hao walked towards Yami. Let's go, Finral. Yami said. Finral, a member of the Black Burst Cow group, the magic attribute belongs to space magic. Born in the Vaude family, a family of aggressive space magicians, his younger brother is the deputy head of Golden Dawn. Because of his character of not wanting to be violent or beaten, he was regarded as a family disgrace, so he chose to escape. Prefers women more than getting things done. Okay. Finral replied, and the grimoire in his hand opened, emitting a blue light. The next moment, he waved his hand, and a circle of silver light appeared. Lin Hao walked in slowly following Yami. 016 A litter of high-profile era. When Lin Hao came out of the silver light circle, he came to another place, the stronghold of the Black Burst Cattle Knights. Space magic. So cool. Lin Hao muttered to himself. Indeed, space magic is very practical, but Lin Hao doesn't know if his space magic can move anywhere at will. After all, before time travel, Lin Hao also watched several animations, in which there were people with the same ability to move in space. However, there are limitations in them, and they need to know the coordinates before they can move. Out of the silver halo, what Lin Hao saw was a dilapidated castle. Upstairs in the castle, there are several brightly lit rooms. Welcome to the Black Burst Cow group. Yami put one hand on his back, looked at the castle in front of him, and let out a satisfied smile. Originally, when he went to examine the candidates today, he originally wanted to go through the procedure, but unexpectedly, he picked up a treasure. Lin Hao nodded. Suddenly, at this moment, there was a bang. The gate of the castle was directly blown away by a ball of flames. Lin Hao frowned suddenly, and became vigilant. However, seeing Yami who was indifferent, Lin Hao put down his vigilance. What's going on here? Lin Hao asked curiously. Yami looked at Lin Hao with a weird smile. Lin Hao was taken aback for a moment, he vaguely felt that something bad was about to happen. Welcome to the worst magic knights, the Black Burst. Yami said. What? The worst magic knight order. Lin Hao frowned. Could it be that he guessed wrong from the very beginning? Yes. Yami said. The gate of this castle was blown up by other members. Lin Hao asked. That's right, these bastards will go to the house to expose the tiles if they don't fight every day. Yami put on a helpless expression. Lin Hao frowned. Originally, he only wanted to find a more normal knight order, but now, he chose the most abnormal knight order. Is it too late to regret now? Ha ha ha, what nonsense are you talking about? Even if it is possible, do you think I will let you go? Yami patted Lin Hao on the shoulder. Lin Hao let out a sigh of relief. Forget it, I picked it myself, and I have to finish it by crawling. Okay, let me take you to meet the other members of our group. Yami took Lin Hao and walked to the gate. At this moment, inside the castle, it was a mess. One of them was wearing glowing boots that looked like armor, and there were thunder and lightning flashing around him. He kept dodging the attack launched by the men below. Inside the castle, there were constant explosions, and the whole castle shook. As for the other members, a short woman was eating desperately there, as if she didn't see what happened around her. One turned on his grimoire, nosebleeds pouring into his mouth in front of the mirror. A sexy girl in a bikini was lying on the sofa, and a fat man was standing by the wall, constantly puffing out smoke. Seeing this scene, Lin Hao's face became stiff. Is this really a member of the Knights? It is simply a high-end version of Era. The kung fu of dismantling the house is first-rate. Oh, it's fighting again. Finral said helplessly. Yami frowned, and a purple light glowed from his arm. You bastards. Don't break things. After all, he hit the backhand with a hammer. With a bang, a wall collapsed directly. Seeing this scene, Lin Hao frowned even more. Just now he could kill a mosquito, but now he can kill a fly. This whole group is abnormal. Lin Hao felt like crying. After hearing this sound, the other members looked back one after another. Captain. Immediately afterwards, a group of people rushed towards Yami as if they were crazy. Work hard, Captain Yami. Head, this is delicious, how about giving you half and half? Commander, welcome back. Captain Yami, in today's examination room, did you encounter a wild boy who knows nothing about his heights and depths? If so, I will kill him. Captain, come and fight with me today. Yami's face darkened, and he said, you guys are noisy. As soon as Yami's words came out, everyone immediately knelt down. With one voice. Sorry. I brought the newcomer here, this handsome guy is another new member, what's your name? Yami asked. Lin Hao. Lin Hao replied. Finral, introduce the team members. Yes, then let me introduce you formally. Finral replied. Then, he pointed to a tall man and said, his name is Gordon Agrippa. Although he looks gloomy and doesn't know what he's thinking, he's a nice guy. Then, yes. He pointed at the woman in the bikini, and continued, Vanessa Enoteca. Although she finds faults everywhere when she's drunk, she's a nice person. As for the introduction of other members, I will open a leaflet and put it in the work. Otherwise, everyone will not be able to read it smoothly. After Finral introduced all the members present, Yami added, there are still a few members who are either on missions or on vacation, or are just lazy. Let's get along well with everyone. Lin Hao nodded, in the days to come, I will teach you a lot. Okay, that's it, let's adjust it casually, don't kill me. Yami ordered. Swipe. Magna immediately stood up from her kneeling position. Magna is a little lower than Lin Hao, with purple hair with black hair sandwiched in the middle, and the hairstyle is a bit ridiculous upside down. The style of doing things is more passionate, and the tone of voice is a little bit sloppy. Facing this, Lin Hao said, did you hear, Captain Yami said let's adjust and adjust. Of course, I will do it. Oh, Magna forgot to mention, and I have to tell you, this guy is not a fuel-efficient lamp. Yami smoked a cigarette and walked towards the sofa. 017 knew magic. Listening to Yami's words, Magna was stunned for a moment, and muttered, isn't it a fuel-efficient lamp? It seems very interesting. Magna's tone of voice was similar to that of those street gangsters, with a look of ecstasy. He reached out and grabbed the cloak on his shoulders, and said to Lin Hao, do you want the cloak of the Black Bulls? Lin Hao hesitated for a while, then chuckled lightly, actually, I don't think it doesn't matter if I want it or not, anyway, as long as you know that I am a member of the Black Burst Cattle Knights. After hearing what Lin Hao said, Magna looked gloomy. What is this guy's background? He doesn't follow the rules at all. You can't be regarded as a real member of the Black Burst Knights before I, Magna, recognize you. Magna said. This is the baptism of the Black Bulls. Finral added on the side. Lin Hao's face was a little gloomy, but he had no choice but to allow him to admit that it was a group baptism. However, if it wasn't for the baptism of joining the group, Lin Hao wouldn't bother to talk to him, even if he didn't approve, it didn't matter if he couldn't be regarded as a real member, anyway, he was a member of the Black Burst group in name. Then tell me, what do you want? Lin Hao asked. Magna sneered, and said to Lin Hao, whether it's magic or what, you can use any means, you have to defend or avoid my attacking magic. If you do it, you will officially become a member of our Black Bull squad. Then can we fight back? Lin Hao asked. Magna smiled disdainfully and said, "Of course." "Understood." Lin Hao nodded. After a while, Lin Hao followed Magna into the yard, while the other members of the Black Pop Bulls watched the show. "Are you ready? I'm going to attack." Magna laughed. "Come on." Lin Hao said calmly, and grimoire floated in front of him. Ka ka ka. Magna's grimoire turned a few pages, and then, in his palm, a fireball about the size of a baseball condensed. Immediately afterwards, he pulled out a baseball bat from the grimoire, but this one was different from ordinary baseball bats. His root is burning with raging fire. Seeing Magna's actions, Lin Hao suddenly realized. Although he doesn't want to use the ability of freezing fruit openly now, he can make some ice weapons to use. Of course, if it is made out of thin air in the hands, it will of course be suspected. But if, like the Magna, it was taken out of the grimoire, who could doubt it? Even if it sounds ridiculous, plant-based magic and ice weapons are taken out, but it makes sense to take it out of grimoire. As he spoke, Lin Hao also put his hand into the grimoire pretendingly. With a sound of schwa, he drew out a long sword made of ice. The Black Blasting Cow group watching the show was startled for a moment. Wow! What kind of sword is this? So cool! Isn't this guy's magic attribute plant-based? How did you pull out such a weapon? Did grimoire exist in the first place? Yami froze for a moment, muttering. However, things are somewhat beyond Lin Hao's expectations, because they don't care what weapon you take out in grimoire at all. I don't know if they are recognized for what they put out in grimoire, or for some other reason. It started. Magna said, and the fireball in his hand flew to his side. He clenched the fire stick with both hands and hit the fireball hard. Bang bang bang. Suddenly, countless small fireballs flew towards Lin Hao. Shhhhhhh. Bang bang bang. Lin Hao swung the ice sword 2 or 3 times and knocked the oncoming fireball away. Magna's small fireball can't damage Lin Hao's ice sword a little bit. Oh, it's pretty good. Magna smiled slightly, and continued, but, the next step is the main event. After all, the fire stick in his hand had already floated in mid-air and the small fireball disappeared. The next moment, his grimoire flipped. Immediately afterwards, a fireball condensed on the palm, but this fireball was many times larger than before. Immediately, a gust of air disperses, and the surrounding temperature also begins to rise gradually. Lin Hao frowned, looking at the fireball in his hand. It seemed very powerful. It may be a bit difficult to use the ice sword in your hand. Flame magic, explosive killing and booming flame ball. Magna made a posture of throwing a baseball, and immediately threw the fireball towards Lin Hao. The ice sword in Lin Hao's hand suddenly turned into gas and disappeared from everyone's sight. He watched the fireball approaching him step by step. Just when he was not going to take the blow, Lin Hao's grimoire turned a few pages automatically, but when grimoire stopped his hand, it was a blank page. However, in the next moment, fonts appeared on the blank page. This is new magic. Lin Hao was startled and muttered. 018 The baptism of joining the group is completed. I have to say that at this moment Lin Hao was quite dazed. In a hurry, he awakened a new magic unexpectedly. Lin Hao looked at grimoire in front of him, and the next moment, he said, wood creation magic, tree net. As soon as he finished speaking, suddenly, in front of him, a wooden net that looked like a fishing net appeared in front of Lin Hao out of thin air. Although it is said to be wood, its softness is no worse than those of silk. The huge fireball hit the tree net directly like this, but it was a bit strong due to the impact. The fireball directly pushed the diameter of the tree net towards Lin Hao. Lin Hao originally thought that the tree net would be pierced, so he immediately jumped to the side. Only after he landed smoothly did he realize that the fireball hadn't penetrated the tree net. I saw the fireball continuously rotating in the center of the tree net. At the center, a puff of green smoke came out, and there was a burning smell. Zizizi. After spinning for a while, the fireball gradually became smaller and finally disappeared in front of everyone. At the same time, Lin Hao also took back the tree net. The new kid seems so strong. I really want to fight with him. Luck looked at Lin Hao with twinkling eyes. It's really strong. Captain, it seems that you have found a treasure. Yami exhaled a puff of smoke ring, said, of course, this kid is very sought after, and at the same time, the 9 knight leaders raised their hands to ask for him. 9. Everyone looked at Yami in surprise. Yami nodded and continued, of course, but I just don't know why. He came to our worst knight order. Of course, if Lin Hao heard this, Lin Hao might spit out a mouthful of blood. At the beginning, when there were some choices, Lin Hao saw that Yami was the most normal, so he chose him. But what he never expected was that this seemingly normal knight order was the most abnormal. If he could do it all over again, Lin Hao would never choose the Black Burst Knights. Magna was also a little shocked when Lin Hao took this move, thinking that he would definitely dodge it. But I didn't expect it, but I took it steadily. He walked to Lin Hao's side, patted Lin Hao's shoulder, and said with a smile, that's right, you're quite capable, you're definitely the one that Captain Yami likes. Lin Hao smiled slightly and didn't say anything. In fact, he had nothing to say. He really wanted to dodge earlier, but in a hurry, he awakened a new magic. The next moment, the other members of the Black Bull blasting group rushed towards Lin Hao. He's a newcomer, he's amazing. Yes, you are very interesting. I'll give you half and half of the pastry. Do you want to eat it? If you don't eat it, I will eat it myself. Without waiting for Lin Hao to answer, she put the pastry into her mouth in one gulp. Immediately afterwards, a happy expression leaked out, saying, well, it's delicious. Luck ran up to Lin Hao and said with an excited expression, then, let's start the second christening ceremony. What? The second baptism? Lin Hao frowned. Luck said while waving his fists and continued, the second baptism is to fight with me. Okay, Luck. You don't make trouble. Everyone has business to do. Finral said, standing aside. Magna handed Lin Hao the cape of the Black Pop Bull group, and said, here you are. This is yours from now on, Lin Hao. Lin Hao nodded and took it. However, Lin Hao, after all, is your full name Lin Hao? Magna asked curiously. After all, Lin Hao only said 2 words when he was introduced just now. Lin Hao shook his head and said, no, Lin Hao is just my first name. My full name is Xie Lin Hao. You can call me Lin Hao, and you don't need to call me by my last name. Lin Hao has always been a Chinese, so he has always disliked being called Hill Lin Hao, and it is more natural to call him Lin Hao. Okay, let's put it on and have a look. Lin Hao nodded. He was about to put it on, but Vanessa used magic to make the Black Bull riding the group's cloak fly. Then, put it on yourself. I have to say that Lin Hao is quite handsome after wearing it. Of course, Lin Hao's appearance is not bad. He is 1.8 meters tall, with black hair and fair skin. Very handsome, Lin Hao. Vanessa smiled slightly. Lin Hao looked at Vanessa and frowned involuntarily. I have to say that this girl is really open, except she is wearing a black cape. Only the bikini is left, and her hot body is fully displayed on her body. Moreover, probably because of drinking a lot of wine, her face is now flushed. 019 new members, it seems that the cape of the Black Bulldog suits you very well. Yami said calmly. Lin Hao looked at Yami and smiled wryly. If he was serious, looking at Yami would be more normal than anyone else. That is, his normal appearance deceived Lin Hao's eyes. In this way, you are a member of the Magic Knights Black Bull. Be good and don't discredit Captain Yami and the Black Bull. Magna said slowly. Meanwhile, the kingdom of 4-leaf clover. Inside the capital. In the gorgeous hall, the current Magic Emperor is sitting on a chair, watching grimoire quietly. Tap tat tat. At this moment, a man with mushroom hair slowly walked into the hall. And he is Magic Emperor's confidant, Marx Francovo. After hearing the sound of footsteps, the Magic Emperor slowly raised his head and closed the grimoire in his hand. Oh. Marx is here, have you figured out the outside affairs? Magic Emperor asked with a slight smile. The current Magic Emperor has a very easygoing personality, unlike other kings who have their own majesty, which makes people feel scared when they see it. Marx nodded and replied, well, yes, Magic Emperor, the commotion in the market today was accidentally caused by a candidate for the Knight Order exam. Oh. The Magic Emperor's eyes flickered with interest, and he continued, I thought it was the head of the knights, what happened? No. Marx repeated. Can you turn the entire roasted city into ruins? It seems that the examinee is not easy. Do you know his name? Magic Emperor stood up slowly and asked. Lin Hao. Marx said. Lin Hao. Is it from a nobleman? Marx shook his head and said, no, it's from Haji village on the border. Haji village. It's rare that someone from such a remote area dares to come to take the exam for the Magic Knights. A smile appeared on Magic Emperor's face. Magic Emperor. Marx said again. Okay. The Magic Emperor looked at Marx curiously. He used to be straightforward, but now he is really hesitant. For a while, the Magic Emperor was not used to it. Among today's candidates, there is one lucky candidate who was selected by Four-Leaf Clover Grimoire. Marx said slowly. Four-Leaf Clover Grimoire? Magic Emperor's eyes suddenly flashed with interest. Yes. Oh, it seems that this year's candidates are quite good. Are they from any royal family or nobles? Magic Emperor asked. Marx shook his head and said, no, they are also from Haji village. After hearing Marx's words, the Magic Emperor had a rich expression, and then smiled strangely. It seems that Haji village is a good place. Magic Emperor. Marx said calmly. The Magic Emperor looked at Marx curiously, and asked in confusion, Marx, what's wrong with you today? You've been hesitating all the time, it makes me feel uncomfortable, do you know? I'm sorry, Magic Emperor, among today's candidates, there is another candidate who has no magic power. What's wrong? Isn't this normal? Don't tell me this kind of thing. I'm very busy. Magic Emperor yawned. Magic Emperor, listen to me first. Although that candidate has no magic power, in his grimoire, he has a weapon that repels all magic. Marx said. The Magic Emperor was slightly taken aback, and said in a deep voice, are there so many good seedlings this year? As he said that, the Magic Emperor looked at Marx, and was about to ask him if he was a nobleman, when he suddenly thought of something and said. He doesn't come from Haji village on the border, does he? Marx was taken aback for a moment, and said, how do you know Magic Emperor? Magic Emperor's face was a little gloomy. Since 3 of the candidates with the highest topic this year were from Haji village on the border. Is there any great mage in this place near Haji village? Magic Emperor asked. Marx shook his head and said, that. I don't know. Exactly. I have a task in hand, and I need 3 of them to complete it. In addition, each of their regiments needs an old member to follow. Marx, you should inform them tomorrow. Magic Emperor said. Marx nodded, turned around and left slowly. For the new members, the task was issued immediately, and it was designated. It was the first time that Marx had been with the Magic Emperor for so long. Early the next morning, when Lin Hao dimly opened his eyes and walked out of the room, he found that the structure of the castle was different from what he saw last night. An illusion. Lin Hao just wanted to touch it. Just then, behind him, a voice came. Don't worry, it's not an illusion. Our stronghold often changes its shape and layout. Magna said. Is there such a thing? Lin Hao smiled wryly. Of course, you'll be fine if you get used to it. By the way, Lin Hao, Captain Yami asked you to meet the new members. They came in at the same time as you. Magna laughed. Of course, the real situation is that Yami asked Magna to take Lin Hao to meet another new member. Where to meet? Lin Hao asked without thinking too much. Do you still remember the yard last night? Just walk a little further. Magna said with a smile. But, I haven't seen him. It's okay, as long as you walk towards the Black Burst Cow group, you will be our new member. Magna explained. Lin Hao nodded, then turned around and walked towards the courtyard. After arriving at the courtyard, Lin Hao continued to walk for a certain distance, leaning against the big tree, and waited quietly. Soon after, a vague figure gradually became clear. When getting closer, Lin Hao was surprised to find that the woman in front of him was the woman he saw in the examination room yesterday, Noelle. And Noelle recognized Lin Hao immediately when she saw Lin Hao. It's you. Noelle said with a slightly stiff face. Lin Hao didn't answer Noelle's question, but just said, you are the new member that the Yami team talked about. Noelle nodded. 020 assigned tasks. I joined the Black Burst team at the same time as you, and Captain Yami asked me to come and meet you. Lin Hao said slowly. Oh. Noelle nodded, holding a word in her mouth, unable to speak. Lin Hao didn't say much, turned around, and continued to move towards the stronghold of the Black Bull Blast group. Noelle walked up slowly. At this moment, she was very conflicted, because, from the moment she saw Lin Hao, she wanted to say something to Lin Hao, but she didn't have the courage. The two continued to walk like this for a while, when they were about to reach the castle. Noelle finally summoned up her courage, quickened her pace, and walked in front of Lin Hao. Lin Hao was a little puzzled by Noelle's actions, and asked curiously, "What's wrong?" Noelle frowned, her face was a little stiff, and she said to Lin Hao in a very low voice, "Yesterday, when you were in the examination room, what did you hear?" Lin Hao was stunned for a moment, and the conversation between Noelle and her brother yesterday flashed through his mind. "You mean the conversation you had with the head of the Night Order?" Lin Hao said calmly. When Noelle heard Lin Hao's words, she immediately lowered her head and said in a low voice, "As expected, you heard everything." Lin Hao looked at her speechlessly, and was about to say something when she preempted her. "Can you not say it?" "No." "Are you referring to what the regimental leader said satirizing you?" Lin Hao asked. Noelle nodded. "But it is true that being ridiculed and abused by one's own big brother makes anyone feel uncomfortable." "Okay, but I'm curious, I heard you call him Brother Wang, but he didn't treat you as Sister Wang at all?" Lin Hao asked. Noelle lowered her head, and said falteringly, because my ability to control magic is very poor." Noelle thought that when she said this, Lin Hao couldn't help laughing at herself. Just when she was ready to accept being laughed at. But Lin Hao said, "Well, your royal family is really confusing." Noelle immediately raised her head to look at Lin Hao, and said, "That's all. Otherwise, what do you want me to tell you? Say that you are such a poor child, who is abused every day. What a miserable life. Or, do you need my comfort? Die." Noelle cursed, then turned around and walked towards the gate of the castle. Although he told Lin Hao to die, he was very relieved to thank Lin Hao for not laughing at himself. Lin Hao looked at Noelle's back, shook his head helplessly, and said, "Oh, so what about the royal family? They are not as good as ordinary people. I have to say that their royal family is really strange, because a younger sister has poor control over magic, so she treats it like this. It's a bit like Lin Hao's patriarchal patriarchy in ancient China, no, or maybe even worse." When Lin Hao returned to the castle, at this moment, all the members of the Black Bursts were present in the living room. Sitting on the other side of the sofa is Marx. "Oh. Lin Hao, are you back?" Yami subconsciously called out when he saw Lin Hao. "Captain Yami, what do you need from me?" Lin Hao walked over slowly. "It's not that I have something to do with you, but this mushroom head has something to do with you," Yami said calmly. "Mushroom head?" Lin Hao subconsciously looked at Marx sitting on the sofa. Marquez stood up and said to Yami, "Chief Yami, don't say such impolite words." As he spoke, he turned his attention to Lin Hao and introduced, "My name is Marx, a confidant of the Magic Emperor." "Magic Emperor?" Lin Hao was taken aback, and then continued, "Is there anything you want from me?" "Yes." Marx nodded, "That's right, the Magic Emperor has a task at hand, and Mr. Xie Lin Hao is designated to complete it. Of course, for your safety, I will call it in your Black Pop Cow group. An old member goes with you. Mission. And the designated person. What does Magic Emperor want to do?" Lin Hao thought to himself. Appointed person to complete the task. Yami began to think, as the most trusted person of the Magic Emperor, to be honest, he couldn't figure out what the Magic Emperor wanted to do. Marx went on to say, "Of course, there are also 2 other designated new members of the Night Order." "I see." Lin Hao replied. "Well, let Captain Yami arrange someone for you. After an hour, gather at the gate of the royal capital. If it's okay, I'll leave first." After Marx finished speaking, he turned and left. "Call." Yami exhaled a puff of smoke ring, and then said, "Who of you would like to go with Lin Hao to complete the task at hand of the Magic Emperor? What is the content of the mission? Is it a fight?" Luck walked up to Yami excitedly, waved his fist, and asked. I don't know, that mushroom head didn't say anything either. Don't talk nonsense, hurry up and get someone to complete the task with Lin Hao. Yami said impatiently. I'll go with Lin Hao. Magna said suddenly. Okay. Yami didn't even think about it, and then said, it's over, what should I do, why go? After a while, Lin Hao and Magna walked towards the gate of the capital. When Lin Hao arrived, he found that there were several people standing at the gate, namely Yuno, Marx, Asta, and one Lin Hao had never seen before. A head of golden hair, exquisite facial features as portrayed, and a charming smile. Over her shoulders, the wearer wears the same cape as Yuno. Apparently, she's also a member of the Golden Dawn. However, Lin Hao was a little curious, what about the members of Asta? After a while, Lin Hao came to them. When Asta saw Magna, he complained, you all have teammates, but I don't. Asta, don't worry, you and their safety can all be left to Magna. Marx said slowly. Magna was not happy when she heard it, and said quickly, are you kidding? I want to take this group of newcomers alone. The night order that Asta belongs to is too busy, and all members are on task. Don't worry, the task is not difficult. Marx said slowly. Magna frowned, outraged. That's up to you, everyone. Marx said. It's on us. Asta shouted excitedly. The Roaring Emperor really deserves his reputation. 021 Intelligence Error. Okay, now it's time to tell you what the mission is this time. Marx summed up his words, and then continued. The Mocha village was invaded by bandits 3 times in just 1 week. The villagers there had no choice but to come to the 4-leaf clover kingdom for help. According to the villagers' reports, there are 2 mages, both of which are at the 1st level, and the rest are mobs. So just in case, the Magic Emperor will send you old members to follow. Okay, that's all for the information. In addition, I'm a little anxious. I hope the knights can solve it as soon as possible. After all, another villager came to ask for help this morning. Okay, we will definitely complete the task. Asta shouted excitedly. Unexpectedly, there was a task just after joining the group, and he was very excited. 2 first-class low-level wizards. Lin Hao muttered. If it is true that there are only 2 wizards as the villagers said, Lin Hao and Yuno alone can solve the problem. Because the strength of Lin Hao and Yuno has already reached the strength of a first-class low-level wizard. Okay, let's go. Magna yelled. Everyone nodded. Since Asta can't use magic, he can only sit on Yuno's magic broom. Others are magic broomsticks that drive themselves. After flying into the sky, Magna, who had been silent just now, finally spoke. This mushroom head is really too much, let me lead 4 newcomers alone. Is that newcomer too? Lin Hao asked. The one Lin Hao was referring to was the blonde beauty in the Golden Dawn regiment. Magna said dissatisfiedly, nonsense, don't I know how many members of the Golden Dawn regiment are there? Of course the new faces are newcomers. Then why didn't you see her during the night's exam? Lin Hao asked suspiciously. Then she should be of the royal family. Magna said in a deep voice. In this black 4-leaf clover world, the royal family does not need to take the night order exam with ordinary people. It was the blonde beauty flying on a magic broom beside Magna, so she naturally heard what Magna said. Sorry to trouble you, senior. The blonde beauty said calmly. He didn't look down on Lin Hao and the others just because he was a royal family. Her name is Mimosa Viamilio, she is the same age as Noel, and she was born in another royal family of the royal family. Her magic attributes are somewhat similar to those of Lin Hao, both of which are plants. However, what she is good at is healing and exploration, so Magic Emperor will temporarily add a member. After flying for almost 2 hours, Lin Hao and the others finally arrived at their destination, Mocha Village. Lin Hao and his party landed on the ground in front of Mocha Village. Then he walked slowly towards the village. The people on the street first looked at these outsiders, when they saw them wearing the cloaks of the knights. On their faces, they showed smiles. It's the knights who are here. Hurry up and notify the village chief. Wow. So handsome, I will also join the Knight Order in the future. A child shouted, bouncing around. After a while, the village chief and some middle-aged men hurried to Lin Hao and the others. The village chief's face was a little stiff, and he said to Magna in front of him angrily, I said that your knights are too slow in doing things. If you come late, this village will probably be ransacked by robbers again. After hearing the village chief's rudeness, the men behind said quickly, Village chief, other knights have come here from thousands of miles away, so stop making sarcastic remarks. Yes. Village chief. Let's discuss how to deal with these robbers. Magna lost her temper when she heard what the village chief said. You old men, what are you talking about? It's too slow. Are you saying it again? The village chief originally wanted to lose his temper, so he didn't pay attention in front of him. When he saw that Magna's shoulders were covered with the black bullpup cape, he immediately frowned. Everyone knows the reputation of the Black Bull Squad. It is a rogue knights, and the members are all of bad character. Our village chief is just too worried about the village. He said this in a hurry. Don't take it too seriously. Let's discuss the robber issue quickly. And smooth things over. Forget it. Don't bother with you old men. Magna said dissatisfied. If the task this time was not sent by the Magic Emperor himself, he, Magna, would definitely have to make a fuss and was doing the task. Then, the village head began to explain the robbers. At present, their villagers have mastered the specific location of the robbers. The robbers' stronghold is not too far from here, on the other side of the village uphill. After getting the specific location, Magna didn't want to waste any more talk with the village chief. He just wanted to finish his work quickly and leave. Regarding the two first-level and lower-level wizards, he, Magna, did not need to discuss any countermeasures. The next moment, he turned to Lin Hao and said, Let's go. Lin Hao and the others nodded, and set off according to the position they gave. Looking at the back of Lin Hao leaving, one of the men suddenly said, Village chief, according to your instructions, I said that the two mages are first-class inferiors, you can't make a mistake. Yeah, I think they are all a group of children, some of them are not very reliable. I think it's better to remind me now, after all, first-class low-level wizards are talking nonsense. Why panic? Who told you that I was talking nonsense? Those two leading robbers are first-class low-level mages, I can tell at a glance. The village chief said. The man standing next to the village chief was taken aback for a moment, and said, Didn't you say that when I went to the four-leaf clover kingdom? Instructors are first-class inferiors. Don't forget, I was also a wizard of the knights. If I wasn't old, I could handle it by myself. Hearing what the village chief said, the men couldn't say anything more. Indeed, he was also a mage of the knights before. However, after only 1 year, he was kicked out for unknown reasons. Of course, the village head would not tell them that he was kicked out. Just saying, I don't want to be. 022 Huge bandit group on the other side, Lin Hao and the others have almost reached the enemy's stronghold. On the mountainside, there is a row of houses, about 20 or so, and there is still the sound of dang-dang. The scale of this house can be regarded as half a village of a small village. Not only that, this mountain is surrounded by rivers, if you want to go over, you have to cross the river. These robbers are really brave. Don't they want to be the king of the mountain? Magna was on the other side of the river, looking at the house halfway up the mountain, his veins erected. Also, isn't the scale too big? Is there really only 2 wizards? Lin Hao asked curiously. Here Lin Hao can see that there are quite a few people densely packed on the mountainside, moving around like ants. And the number of people must not be less than 200. To be honest, I don't believe it either. It's really weird that there are only 2 wizards in such a huge crowd. Is there a mistake in the information? Yuno on the side also felt something was wrong. If the village chief hadn't said that this was a bandit, I would have thought it was another village. Asta said. At this moment, Magna also became silent, and he agreed with these views. Damn it. That old man is not a good person at first glance, but he even reported false information in order to get the people of my Knight Order to quickly support him. Magna said in a deep voice. Go to the four-leaf clover kingdom for help, and the knights will send members of different levels of the knights to deal with it according to the level of difficulty of the task. Now, let alone the 2 first-class low-level wizards, with the size of more than 200 people, no matter what, the Magic Emperor would never appoint Lin Hao and the others to complete this task. After all, Lin Hao and the others are just new members. In Magna's eyes, this task is simply impossible for him alone and 4 new members. There are too many enemies and their abilities are unknown. If we act recklessly, we are likely to bring ourselves to the brink of death. Lin Hao frowned. So what now? Asta asked. What else can I do? Messing around will only cost you your life. Now you can only go to the 4-leaf clover kingdom, report the situation and send someone to complete this task. Magna said with a stiff face. Suddenly, at this moment, behind Lin Hao, there was the sound of tattling footsteps. After Lin Hao reacted, he was ready to turn back. A voice came over. A member of the Knights? A rare guest. You are here, don't you give me a face, and go to my place to have a cup of tea before leaving. When Lin Hao turned his head, he found that there were 5 burly men standing in front of them. Moreover, except for the 2 men standing in front, they didn't hold anything. The other 3 were holding and carrying large and small bags. Obviously, they should have just returned from harvesting from another village. The 2 leading men are Moss and Joes. Of course, they are also the bosses of this bandit group. Seeing this scene, Magna frowned suddenly, his face was very stiff. Damn it. It's something that the more I don't want to come, but it just came. But Lin Hao and Yuno quickly became alert. How can you say that? Of course we have to welcome guests when they come. Moss laughed. Lin Hao, take them away and hurry back to the 4-leaf clover kingdom. Magna said in a deep voice. What about you? Senior? Lin Hao asked. I'll buy some time. When you guys go far away, I can escape alone. Magna said with her brows furrowed. You're disrespecting Moss. Moss turned around and said to a man carrying a classmate on his shoulders. Send the signal. Let the brothers come out and say hello together. Understood, brother. Boom. The man carrying the thing immediately put the thing on his shoulders on the ground. Pulled out his own grimoire. Fire creation magic, the impact of fire. The voice fell. Immediately, a pillar of fire rose straight into the sky, and after reaching a certain height, it stopped. Just like this, a pillar of fire stood out of thin air. Go. Magna yelled. Lin Hao and the others just got on the magic broom, and suddenly, 2 men riding the magic broom stood in front of them. Of course, there is one of the leaders here, Qiao Zhe. Is this really only 2 mages? Asta asked doubtfully. After all, from meeting to now, he discovered that these 5 people can use magic. Seeing that Lin Hao and the others were also blocked, Magna's face became even more rigid. This damn old man. Moss couldn't help smiling when he saw Magna's expression. Immediately afterwards, a copy of grimoire appeared in front of him. Strengthen creation magic. Bear's Wrath. As soon as Moss finished speaking, his grimoire burst into dazzling light. Immediately afterwards, there was a sudden change in his body. He was already very burly before, but after using strengthening magic, his whole body was twice as big as before. 023 The road to the ice god set sail facing Moss's growing size. Magna couldn't help sweating on his face when he showed the aura of his body at that time. This guy is definitely not a first-class low-level wizard. Magna's heart is broken now, and she has completely suffered for that old man. Then, Mr. Knights, let me, Moss, show you your strength. Moss moved his bones, let out a drink, and flew towards Magna. Bang bang bang. When Moss ran, his body weight was obviously beyond the proper weight range for his size. Magna hastened to cast her magic. Flame magic, explosive killing and booming flame ball. With a bang, Magna directly threw a huge fireball. Facing the fireball that flew suddenly, Moston stopped immediately, opened his hands, and directly held down the flying fireball. Z. There was a sound like water being poured into a fire, and along with a puff of black smoke, Magna's fireball was directly suppressed by Moss and disappeared. This thing is quite hot. Moss looked at his scorched palm and didn't pay much attention to it. The next moment, he rushed towards Magna again. Behind Magna, Lin Hao's battle also started. With a bandit leader like Moss, Joe's strength is not at all a first-class low-level mage, but a first-class intermediate wizard. This is bound to be a tough battle. But fortunately, it is indeed the protagonist Asta of the original book. His sword can cut magic. This has brought great benefits to Lin Hao and the others. Again, Asta. Yuno yelled. Look at me. Asta jumped up directly, swung the long sword in his hand, and slashed down at the water polo coming from the dark side. The water polo was cut open like tofu, and immediately fell to the ground. Damn it, what's the matter with this kid? So many consecutive attacks were wiped out by this kid. Qiao Zhe frowned involuntarily, and suddenly realized the next moment. Could it be that his sword can nullify magic? While muttering, a smile appeared on his face and continued, that's really amazing. Wood creation magic entangling. Wind magic, tower of violent mist. Lin Hao and Yuno activated the magic at the same time. Suddenly several huge vines sprang out from the ground. Qiao Zhe, who was distracted for a while, was immediately caught up, and then, Yuno's magic formed a super large tornado. Fly towards Zhou's. Seeing the approaching tornado step by step, Qiao Zhe didn't panic at all. I saw his magic book flipping. Water creation magic, water dragon. As soon as Qiao Zhe finished speaking, a water dragon with a hooked nose and thorns all over appeared out of nowhere in front of him. He entangled towards the tornado created by Yuno, and in the blink of an eye, the tornado and the water dragon disappeared from everyone's sight. Asta, it's now. Yuno yelled. Holding the long sword in his hand, Asta descended from the sky and slashed directly at Zhou's. You're still too young. Zhou smiled slightly. Behind Asta, suddenly, an arm formed of water grabbed his feet directly. Immediately afterwards, he fell heavily to the ground. After the battle lasted for more than 10 minutes, all the robbers in the stronghold rushed here. For Lin Hao and the others, this is simply worse. It directly reduces the winning rate by half. Later, Lin Hao was in charge of fighting the bandit members, while Yuno and Asta dealt with Qiao Zhe. As for Mimosa, she's all about making soy sauce. 1 hour down. Great changes have taken place in the surroundings, vines stretching across 7 and 8, and corpses overlap. The blood directly stained the other side of the river red, and even the water in the river was not spared, adding a red color. Yuno and Asta exerted all their strength and knocked Zhou's down to the ground. But the two of them paid a heavier price. Asta lost consciousness directly, and Yuno was seriously injured, lying on the ground, dying. If Mimosa hadn't been there at this time, Yuno would have ascended to heaven. The situation of Magna on the other side is also very miserable, being beaten with blood all over by moss-perverted magic. Lin Hao's magic power was also exhausted. Now the entire battlefield, only Mimosa, Lin Hao, and Moss are left. And Moss still looks intact. Lin Hao frowned. At this moment, he has no choice. Can only use the ability of the frozen fruit on his body. Damn knights, I didn't expect you to be quite capable. Moss grabbed Magna's head and threw him away. Maybe I was wrong at the beginning. If you have abilities in your body and don't use them, it's no different from being useless. Lin Hao said in a deep voice. White gas began to emerge from his body. Zizizi. Magna lay on the ground, raised his head with difficulty, now his nose was bruised and his face was covered with blood. He opened his eyes and looked at Lin Hao. Quick, run away. I don't want to let new members die in my eyes when I bring new members for the first time. After hearing the voice, Moss turned his head and said with a sneer, Oh. You can still talk, but your knights think too much of me, don't you? You even sent new members to arrest me. You don't want to watch the new member die in your eyes, so I want you to watch him get killed by me. Moss sneered. He looked around and finally settled on Mimosa. Oh, is there a healing magic here? Moss said in a deep voice, and ran towards Mimosa directly. Watch out. Lin Hao shouted. Mimosa turned her head immediately, but it was too late to dodge. With a sound of bang, Mimosa was directly punched by Moss and flew into the river. Lin Hao jumped and landed on the water. Zizizi. The river under his feet suddenly froze. The next moment, Lin Hao caught Mimosa, and then he lowered Mimosa towards the lake. Seeing this, Mimosa gasped and closed her eyes. He thought Lin Hao was going to throw himself into the river. As she felt the chill on her back, she quickly opened her eyes. Subconsciously looking at the river surface has been frozen at this time. What's going on here? Mimosa asked Lin Hao curiously. And Lin Hao didn't answer her question but asked instead, "Are you okay?" "No. It's okay," Mimosa said. "It's fine," Lin Hao said, and walked towards the shore with strides. When he walked to the river that was not frozen by himself, the river was quickly frozen again until it reached the shore. Magna was stupefied when he saw this scene, and said, "What happened? What's the matter? This kid seems to be a little bit bad." Moss also noticed that something was wrong. But he didn't think too much, and quickly ran towards Lin Hao with his fist clenched. "Drink!" He waved his fist and punched Lin Hao's face heavily, but with the clang, Lin Hao directly turned into a ball of ice slag. That's right, this is the elementalization of the natural frozen fruit, which can be immune to all physical attacks. Although it is true that Lin Hao's current magic power cannot beat Moss, Lin Hao still has the ability to freeze fruits. But Moss magic is to strengthen the body, and it is completely restrained by the ability of frozen fruit. When Moss saw this scene, his pupils shrank violently. What's going on here? Zizizi. On the ground, a pile of ice slags piled up, and gradually turned into a human form again. "Now you can't even touch my body," Lin Hao said coldly. "Arrogance." Moss roared angrily, and hit Lin Hao with another fist. There was a bang. The situation was the same as last time. Lin Hao became elemental again. Zizizi. Lin Hao's body recovered slowly, and said, "I said, now you can't even touch my body." "Shut up." Moss wanted to punch again. However, the next moment, his fist was directly frozen. There was a snap. Lin Hao kicked it directly. But because of Moss' weight, he just took a few steps back. It seems that after going back, I still have to practice physical skills well. This body is too bad, Lin Hao muttered. Moss, who stabilized his footsteps, looked at Lin Hao and became silent. He hasn't recovered from just now. He didn't understand how Lin Hao did it. He disappeared for a while and reappeared for a while. Is it magic? No, it's impossible. I watched him take grimoire in the battle just now. Now, grimoire doesn't even move. How did he do it? Also, just now this kid obviously used plant-type magic. Could it be that he has two kinds of magic? No, even if he has two kinds of magic, he still needs to use grimoire. Otherwise, how could my fist not hit him? Damn. What kind of mysterious force is this? Moss stood there, answering for a few seconds, followed by looking at the frozen arm in his hand, but he couldn't get rid of the ice in his hand. It's a last resort. Moss frowned, and his grimoire flipped. Enhanced Magic Titan Bear. As soon as the words fell, immediately, his body began to grow again, and finally turned into a titan. Looking at the titan in front of him, Lin Hao sneered and said, "Do you think you can beat my real body when you get bigger? Tell you, in this lifetime, you will never be able to." After all, Lin Hao quickly released a powerful cold air. Frozen moment. Zizizi. On the ground, it is freezing at a speed visible to the naked eye. On the other side of the river, it has now become a world of ice and snow, although the scale is not very large. However, it also shocked Moss. If he hadn't jumped so fast just now, he would have turned into an ice titan now. Of course, the range of freezing Lin Hao can be controlled. Southwest, the place where Magna, Yuno, and Asta are lying, is not frozen. The other robbers were not so lucky, and now they all turned into ice sculptures. What's wrong with Lin Hao? Why does he seem to be a different person? Magna was shocked when he saw the scene around him. He is very suspicious now. Is the Lin Hao standing in front of him the Lin Hao he knows? During the baptism of the knights, Magna felt that Lin Hao was just an ordinary new member, but he did not expect that his real strength was so terrifying. Mimosa, standing on the glacier, was also terrified by the scene in front of her. Yeah, that's awesome, and without grimoire. Mimosa thought that the ability Lin Hao was using now was just his magic. Even now Moss is considering whether to continue fighting with Lin Hao. Call. Lin Hao couldn't help but emit white gas. After hesitating for a while, Moss quickly pulled out the ice cube on the side, followed by throwing it directly towards Lin Hao. Go to hell. Facing the oncoming big ice, Lin Hao didn't need to dodge at all, just stood there. Boom. The ice cubes fell on Lin Hao's body. Did it work? As soon as Moss finished speaking, a pile of ice cubes gradually rose up in front of the ice cubes, and finally turned into a human form. It's useless, Lin Hao said in a deep voice. He raised his hand and aimed at Moss. "This is easy." Immediately, Lin Hao's entire arm turned into a stick of ice, and in the blink of an eye, the stick of ice turned into a handful of ice spikes. With a sound of "ooh," the ice spike flew directly towards Moss. For this kind of thing, Moss didn't dare to fight hard with his fists. He could only obediently dodge to the side. Immediately afterwards, they attacked Lin Hao. Because Moss is so big, the ground will vibrate slightly when he walks. Go to hell. UB**************. D. Moss waved his fist and hit Lin Hao directly. Boom. Sounded. The speed of the ground directly shattered, smashing out a big hole. Just when Moss wanted to raise his hand to see if it worked. "This easy." The ice was slowly freezing his fist, and he suddenly felt something was wrong. He quickly raised his hand. If he raised it slower, his entire arm would be frozen. In the pit, Lin Hao turned into a human again. I have to say that elementalization of this frozen fruit is too convenient. No matter how strong your body is, if you can touch it, I will be considered a loser. Lin Hao thought to himself. Moss's magic is to strengthen the body, and now Lin Hao's single elementalization has already crushed him to death. There is no doubt that Moss will definitely lose this battle. Moss shook his frozen fist, trying to break the ice away. However, it couldn't be opened. "Drink!" He yelled and hit his fist directly on the ground. Crack! The ice was broken, but his fist was gone too. Why is this happening? Moss was puzzled, his face a little stiff. This guy is really weird. If this continues, he will definitely kill him. Moss saw the timing, turned around and started running immediately. "Do you think you can still run?" Lin Hao blinked his eyes, then raised his hand the next moment. A shock wave of cold air projectiles shot towards the back of Moss. However, due to the huge size of Moss, Lin Hao originally aimed at the back, but unexpectedly hit his feet. Suddenly, his feet were frozen to the ground. Boom. He fell directly to the ground, looked back at his frozen feet, and frowned. Tap tat tat. Lin Hao walked towards him slowly. "As long as you let me go, I'll give you whatever you want." Moss finally confessed at this moment. "You asked for everything, you insisted on us staying for tea. Now, I just want your life." Lin Hao's tone was very cold. "I have a lot of money, a lot of money." Moss continued. "You don't need to tell me, I will take it later." When Lin Hao finished speaking, he had already come to Moss, and he raised his hand. It rested on the frozen leg of Moss. Frozen. As soon as Lin Hao finished speaking, the ice sizzled, covered his whole body. In a few seconds, he turned into an ice sculpture. Call. Lin Hao let out a breath of cold air. His right hand was now covered with a thin layer of ice, and white gas was emitting from his body. It's finally over. Lin Hao sighed involuntarily as he looked at the ice sculpture in front of him. In fact, it is not that Moss is weak, on the contrary, he is very strong. His magic is to strengthen magic and strengthen the body. However, it was only this one magic that made him lose completely. The elementalization of frozen fruit. Even if Moss' physical body is stronger, he still can't hit Lin Hao's entity. After a while, Lin Hao jumped up and punched Moss's ice sculpture hard. Crack! Crack! The ice sculpture directly cracked, followed by a bang. A titan ice sculpture was shattered and collapsed on the ground. At this time, Mocha walked to Lin Hao's side from the glacier and said, "Now, are we going back to the four-leaf clover kingdom or something?" Lin Hao shook his head. During the battle just now, his mana had been exhausted, and now he had no mana to control the magic broom. In addition, there are still 3 injured people here, which is even more difficult. My magic power was exhausted in the battle just now, and I can't go back now. Lin Hao said truthfully. Immediately afterwards, he asked again, "How is Yuno's injury?" "It's basically stabilized," Mocha said. "Well, go treat my senior now," Lin Hao said. "Okay." Mocha nodded. In Lin Hao's eyes, Magna is considered a qualified senior. In life and death, in order to save his teammates, Magna can give up his life. Lin Hao knew that it was impossible to go back tonight like this. He first ran to the stronghold and took all the valuables from the robber to the other side of the river. Immediately afterwards, I went to find some dry wood and lit a fire. I went to the river to catch a lot of fish. After cleaning them, I stuck them with tree branches and put them in the fire to roast. It took Lin Hao more than 2 hours to sit on these things. The sky gradually entered the night, but under the illumination of the firewood, the surroundings could barely be seen. Magna, Yuno, and Asta are all saved by Mimosa. Lin Hao brought a grilled fish in front of Mimosa. Be tired, let's eat something first. Thanks. Mimosa nodded, took the fish from Lin Hao's hand, and stared at the fish in front of her. For a while. Mimosa, as a royal family, used to put all kinds of delicious things in front of her eyes. Of course, she had never eaten such a dark thing in front of her. This is not the capital of the kingdom, so you can just settle for it. Lin Hao watched her staring at the fish for a while, and then said, No, that's not what I meant, I was thinking, fish can still be eaten like this. Mimosa said hastily. He put the fish in his mouth, which surprised Mimosa. This dark and scary-looking thing tasted quite delicious. It's delicious, Mr. Lin Hao. Mimosa smiled slightly at Lin Hao. Lin Hao was slightly taken aback, and said, How do you know my name? I heard seniors yelling like this. Mr. Lin Hao is not only gentle, but also delicious and powerful. He is really amazing. Mimosa cast an envious look at Lin Hao. Lin Hao just smiled and said, Take a good rest, you are also very good today, if it weren't for you, Senior and the two of them would have died. And at this moment, Magna on the side slowly opened his eyes and sat up. The pain immediately spread to his brain nerves. It hurts. Magna said subconsciously. Senior, your injury is a bit serious, and you have treated 3 people in a row. My magic power is not enough. I just gave you some emergency treatment. If you move around like this, the wound will open. Mimosa said quickly from the side. Of course, these Magna didn't care at all, cast their eyes on Lin Hao, and said angrily, Lin Hao, you are not loyal enough, you hide your strength so well. I'm sorry, Senior, I never planned to use this power at first. When it comes to crisis, there is no other way. Lin Hao explained. Forgive you guy, but how powerful you are, how did you defeat him? Magna asked. Lin Hao smiled and said, That's because I'm stronger than him. When Magna heard this, he almost vomited blood in anger, which was no different from saying nothing. Don't want to talk about it. Lin Hao took the grilled fish aside to Magna's side, and said, Eat it, gain some energy, and go back tomorrow. Magna quickly took the grilled fish, he was so hungry now, he ate it hungrily. But having said that, I remember that your magic is not plant-based. How can you use ice-based magic? Seeing that Lin Hao was silent, Magna continued, It's not convenient to say, you just need to know that, no matter what, you, Lin Hao, will always be a member of our Black Pop Cow group. Lin Hao hesitated for a while, then said, Of course it can be said, after all, this is not a secret that can't be told. In fact, I am a person with dual attribute magic. What? Magna and Mimosa looked at Lin Hao in shock. Double magic. The two of them said almost in unison. Lin Hao nodded. I can't believe it, there are people with dual attribute magic. Mr. Lin Hao, you are really amazing. The reason why Lin Hao said it was dual attribute magic was to make it easier for them to understand. If what he said was true, I am actually a person with a frozen fruit ability. Then the two of them will definitely look at Lin Hao in a daze and ask around. You're a monster, right? Since you have dual attribute magic. Magna exclaimed. It's too strong, you are the only magic in this world with dual attributes. Mimosa's face was full of envy. Lin Hao just smiled and didn't explain too much. Early the next morning, Mimosa got up early to treat Magna and the others. When Lin Hao got up, Magna and the 3 of them could stand up. Lin Hao, did you take these out from the robber's stronghold? Magna looked at the bags on the ground and asked Lin Hao. Yes. But, Senior, there is a saying, mine comes first, the money is mine, and no one can touch it. Lin Hao said firmly. Lin Hao, you be asterisk 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 D, want to steal it for yourself. Give me some anyway. Immediately, Magna became unwilling, and immediately walked towards the bags of things. Yuno stood aside and asked curiously, shouldn't these things be returned to the villagers? Magna just walked to the bags, and stopped immediately after hearing this. Return. According to the normal procedure, it is indeed the case. But, the old man wants to let the knights use the fastest support. Reporting false information. We were almost killed by him. We will definitely report this matter to the Magic Emperor. Yuno fell silent and stopped talking. When Magna came to his senses, he wanted to get something in the bag. Only to find that everything has been taken away by Lin Hao. Lin Hao, I am your senior. This time the person who fought the worst. So what, I'm still the one who saved your life. After talking about the money, no one can touch it. It's mine. Lin Hao replied. After tossing for a while, Magna finally gave up. Then, he tidied up his face and walked towards the Mocha village. Just like yesterday, as soon as the people here heard that the knights had returned, many people immediately ran over to watch. After a while, the village chief also walked in front of Magna. How? How? Those robbers have been caught by you, the village head asked. Magna frowned, grabbed the village chief by the collar, and said angrily, you damn old man, do you know that we were almost killed by you? What are you talking about? The village chief said with a stiff face. Who said that there were only 2 mages in that group of robbers, and they were of the first rank? Magna's anger gradually increased. Village head, this. Lin Hao, tie him up and bring him back to the 4-leaf clover kingdom. Magna let go of his hand. Lin Hao nodded, and opened the grimoire, wood creation magic entangling. In the blink of an eye, several vines bound the village chief tightly. Although, Magna took the village head and headed towards the kingdom of 4-leaf clover. After a long time, the kingdom of 4-leaf clover. Marx walked into the hall in a hurry, and said to the Magic Emperor who was sitting above. Magic Emperor, Magna, and the others are back. Magic Emperor smiled slightly, thought they could finish it in a single day. This time, they directly captured the village chief who was stuck in the village. Marx continued. Magic Emperor was taken aback. Why? According to Magna, the information given by their village is all fake. The real situation is that there are 40 to 50 mages, with a scale of more than 200 people, and the leader of the bandits has at least reached the first-class intermediate mage. I almost lost my life. Magic Emperor frowned, it seems that things have indeed exceeded my expectations. I thought that adding a few more people could prevent emergencies, but I didn't expect. It seems that they were negligent. Where are they now? At the gate of the capital. Marx replied. As soon as Marx finished speaking, the Magic Emperor walked outside. For his own negligence this time, Magic Emperor is obviously very guilty. The 3 new members of the Knights who almost let him be optimistic almost lost their lives. Magic Emperor's speed was very fast, and he had already arrived at the gate of the king's capital in a short while. At this time, Lin Hao and the others were all present, and the one next to them was naturally the village chief who had been kidnapped from Mocha village. Magna was still cursing the village chief at the gate of the capital, but after a while, footsteps came. He subconsciously looked over, and suddenly his pupils shrank violently. Magic. Magic Emperor. The next moment, Magna knelt down on one knee. Magic Emperor. Lin Hao and the others took a look at it, and then followed Magna in saluting to the Magic Emperor. No. I didn't expect that it was you who came to greet me in person. Magna said in a deep voice. And Yuno's and Asta's eyes were shining brightly. This person is the current Magic Emperor. Yuno thought to himself. So domineering. Is this the Magic Emperor? Asta began to feel uneasy. As expected of a person who has become a Magic Emperor, the aura he exudes is different from anyone I have ever seen before. Lin Hao thought. I have a general understanding of your situation. This time, you have done a good job. Magic Emperor said blankly. Yes. Magna said in a low voice. Also. As for how to deal with it, leave it to me, and I will give you a satisfactory answer. Magic Emperor said in a deep voice. Yes. Magna replied. Thank you. When the Magic Emperor said this, a smile leaked out. That's what we do. Magna said. Okay, Magna, you go and call your captain, I have something important to tell him. Magic Emperor said to Magna. Yes. Magna stood up slowly, turned and left in a hurry. Okay, get up too. Magic Emperor said with a slight smile. The next moment, the four of them stood up. Although you almost lost your life this time, you still gained a lot. I heard from Marks that the biggest credit this time is Lin Hao, right? Magic Emperor glanced at the three men. Obviously, he doesn't know which man is Lin Hao now. No, everyone has contributed a lot this time. Lin Hao said. The Magic Emperor just smiled, and did not continue to pursue this question, but said, today's rookie king, you must be the one. Well, leave this person to me, and you can go back and rest. Yes. Everyone said in unison. After the Magic Emperor dealt with the village chief, he returned to the hall again. At this time, Yami has been waiting there for a long time. I've been waiting for a long time. I have some things at hand. I just finished. Magic Emperor stepped in. Yami shook his head and said, no, I just arrived too. There is only one purpose for coming to you today, about the new members of the Knights. Magic Emperor walked to his seat and sat down. Say it. Yami said. During the night exam, there was a little guy with no magic power, you should know something about it. Yami nodded. Originally, the Emerald Mantis Knights took him into their own knights. The head of the Emerald Mantis Knights thought that the kid was in the competition, but he just didn't use magic. After joining the regiment later, I realized that he didn't use magic, but that he didn't have magic. So, he came to me that night and told me that he wanted to cut this one. What I mean is, I want him to join your regiment, because no one is willing to accept him except you. Moreover, his value is very high, and it's just that it hasn't been discovered yet. Indeed, it's no wonder that the leader of the Green Mantis couldn't find out. If I hadn't grabbed his head during the examination room, I would have thought he just didn't use magic. Yami said slowly. Then I will trouble you. Go to the Emerald Mantis Knights and bring that guy back to your stronghold. Magic Emperor laughed. I see. Yami nodded, but did not leave directly, but continued, I heard from Magna that there was a big accident in this mission. The Magic Emperor was silent for a while, then nodded, yes, although I calculated that there might be an accident and gave defenses in advance, I didn't expect such a big accident to happen. No matter how big the accident is, they still came back alive. Indeed. The Magic Emperor smiled, these three little guys from the border village are really interesting. Soon after, Lin Hao and Magna returned to the stronghold of the Black Bursts. At this time, inside the castle, it was still the same. Those who are drunk, those who are eating, those who have a nosebleed looking at the photo of their sister, those who are punching all by themselves, and so on. Kaz. The door was pushed open. Everyone came back to their senses and fixed their eyes on the gate. Oh, Magna and Lin Hao are back. The next moment, they rushed towards Lin Hao and the others. Lin Hao, I heard that you guys encountered a big accident during your mission this time. You almost lost your life. It's true. Before Lin Hao could answer, Magna yelled, of course it's true, that old guy in Mocha village, in order to let the knights go to support quickly, he misreported information, saying that there were only 2 wizards, and you guessed it, how many wizards are there? 5, one of them replied. 10, replied another. Magna shook his head, stretched out a palm, and said, add a 0 after this. Everyone's pupils widened, and they said in disbelief, 50 people. The most outrageous thing is not this, it is that an old member of me was asked to carry out this task with 4 new members, and almost all of them lost their lives. Magna said angrily. The village chief of that Mocha village is good or bad? You just come back like this, don't talk to the village chief. Of course we're looking for him. Just tie him back and hand him over to the Magic Emperor. Magna sneered. Thanks for your hard work. Fortunately, there was no danger. Vanessa took the wine in her hand and handed it to Magna and Lin Hao. He smiled and said, come on, let's have a drink to celebrate your return. I'll give you half of my pastry too, no. It's a quarter. Charmy divided the pastry into quarters, and handed one to Lin Hao and one to Magna. Suddenly, at this moment, a voice came over. "What are you doing blocking the door?" Lin Hao and Magna turned around. A huge body stood in front of them. "Captain Yami? You're back so soon?" Magna said with a smile on his face. "Yeah." Yami responded, and then continued, "I also brought back a good thing." "Nice one." Everyone looked at Yami suspiciously, but they didn't see anything in his hand. "Where? Why didn't I see it?" Magna asked curiously. "Newcomer. Come out," Yami said in a deep voice. As soon as the words fell, Asta walked away from Yami's side. "I'm Asta from Haji village. Please give me your advice." Haji village? Everyone froze for a moment. Haji? Really? Isn't that a super remote village? "Actually, I'm also from Haji village," Lin Hao said. "What?" Everyone looked at Lin Hao in surprise, and then at Asta. "Do you know each other?" "It's not really acquaintance. It's just that I've met him a few times, because I'm in his next village," Lin Hao explained. "Okay, let's introduce the team members," Yami said calmly. "Okay." Finral responded, pointed at Lin Hao and said to Noel, "These two are newcomers just like you," and then he is. After the Finral introduction, Yami said, "Okay, this time the task assigned by the Magic Emperor, you have done a great job, hard work, brats. Then, there is another piece of good news." "Good news?" Everyone looked at Yami again. "Well, your outstanding performance. It was recognized by the Magic Emperor. He rewarded us with 3 stars. Yami smiled slightly. Except for Lin Hao and Asta who don't know what the stars are for, the other members are all excited. Seeing them excited, Asta also shouted. "Really? That would be great. However, what is that star?" Asta asked curiously. "Huh? You don't know, why are you so happy?" Magna said. Asta smiled and said, "I just saw that you are very excited, although I don't know what it is. But it feels very powerful." Vanessa smiled, and then explained, "Based on the performance of the knights, the Magic Emperor will award stars, which can be regarded as an honor." Honor. Hearing these 2 words, Asta's eyes sparkled, and he forgot that he was cut off by the leader of the Emerald Mantis. Well, the Magic Knights will compete with each other for the number of stars. The more stars, the better the performance of the knights. Vanessa continued to explain. "By the way, the Knights of the Golden Dawn have the most. 70. Where's our black popcorn group?" Lin Hao asked curiously. "What about us?" Yami let out a smirk, then turned around, and the stars of the 3 subjects floated up and stuck to the wall. Suddenly, 3 star holes on the wall disappeared. "Now, it's exactly 28. Yami said gloriously. Negative, negative. As expected, it belongs to the Rogue Knights." Lin Hao sighed. 031 shot 3 next day. It was just dawn. Bang bang bang. After Lin Hao heard the movement, he dimly opened his eyes. "Lin Hao. Get up, Captain Yami has something important to say." Magna shouted while knocking on the door. Lin Hao froze for a moment. "I see, I'll be right here." After Lin Hao replied, he quickly got up. When Lin Hao went out to the hall, almost everyone had gathered and sat on the sofa. Lin Hao also sat down on the sofa slowly. "Okay. Everyone is screwed." Yami exhaled a puff of smoke ring, and said in a low tone. "Yes, Captain Yami." Everyone replied. "Okay, let's start now. According to the news I just got, the whole village of Suashi village was massacred yesterday, and all the villages were reduced to ashes in one night." Yami said, frowning involuntarily. "What?" After everyone heard this, their eyes widened. The whole village was massacred. The village was reduced to ashes overnight. Captain Yami, who did this? It's too crazy. It's crazy, it can be described as a twisted and perverted heart. Lin Hao said with a stiff face. The whole village was massacred, and the village was reduced to ashes overnight. If there was no deep hatred, the person who did this must be a perverted lunatic. Even if there is really a deep hatred and a debt, why should the whole village be buried together? The most important thing is that there are many children. Yami shook his head and said, I don't know, I just found out about it, so I immediately called you over to discuss it. As he said that, he cast his gaze on the 3 new members, and said, Lin Hao, Asta, you 2 have just returned from a mission, and I'm asking you to go there again. Just the 2 of them? Vanessa asked. Of course not, plus a Noel. Yami replied. Captain Yami, I'm afraid this is not good. The 3 of them are newcomers and have little practical experience. It may be too abrupt to let them go. After all, Lin Hao and the others just had an accident yesterday. Vanessa worried said. I feel the same way. The whole village was massacred and the village was reduced to ashes overnight. Thinking about it, it is a ruthless character. The most important thing is that we have no information at all. Luck added. Originally, I thought I could use Finral's space magic, so the 3 of them wouldn't be needed, but Finral hadn't been to Suashi village, so I had to let the 3 of them go. Lin Hao, the 3 of you, can you? Yami asked towards Lin Hao. Lin Hao hesitated for a while, then nodded, and said, you can try it. Little guy, don't be brave, this kind of thing is not something you can joke about. Vanessa said in a deep voice. Don't worry. Lin Hao is very powerful, so we don't need to worry at all. Magna added on the side. Thinking of the last mission, the person he couldn't beat with all his strength, and Lin Hao really defeated him with ease. People like this need to worry. That simply does not exist. Of course, the reason why Yami let the 3 of them go was because Magna told him what happened that day. Although I really want an old member to follow, but the conditions are not allowed now, because there are other tasks that need them to complete today, so I can only let you few new members handle it. Of course, the enemy should have already evacuated. Your purpose in the past was to take a look, and you can report detailed information to me when you come back. Yami said slowly. Understood. Captain Yami. Lin Hao said calmly. And Vanessa and the others still wanted to say something, but hearing Yami's tone, she knew it was useless to say more. Be careful, little ones, Vanessa ordered. I'm so excited just thinking about it. I received a second mission within a few days of coming to the Knights. Asta's eyes were shining brightly. Okay, let's go. Don't waste any more time. Yami said in a deep voice. Okay. Captain Yami. Asta roared loudly. Well, do you 2 know how to get to Suashi village? Lin Hao asked. Asta suddenly petrified, shook his head, and said, no. I don't know. What about you? Lin Hao continued to talk to Noel. I know, but I can't control my magic power, can I really go? Noel said shyly. Didn't Captain Yami say that he was just going to collect detailed information? The enemy should have already evacuated. Okay. Noel nodded. Then, Lin Hao and the others walked out of the castle, and the 3 of them came to the courtyard. Lin Hao took out his magic broom, and immediately rode on it. That. I don't know how to fly with a broom. Noel said softly. Me too. Lin Hao.